This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
No, cut that. Keep that. Someday it's going to be worth something.
Russ Wakeland.
You put me in an ATST with frickin' Wookiees attacking me and whatnot?
Now you're talking.
And the Sadler brothers in the third chair.
No, that's Sadler, not Sandler.
With contributions from Total Fangirl
Vampires do not sparkle.
and our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at the speed of one MMORPG character, tearing into another MMORPG character's world, stealing boots of speed and a potion of flying, jumping into a spaceship and taking off. This edition is brought to you by all of our friends at Patreon, the men, the women, the boys, and girls who keep this show going from one episode to the next, one mighty artistic endeavor to the next. And today I'd like to thank Mike P., Nick Pacholski, Keith Parks, Robert Passmore, Edward Pemberton, Dave Pike, Gary Preedy, and Justice Rameth. I'm Geekly McNardigan, your host today. Our panelists are, as always, Russ, Robert Rath, Wakeland, and the battling brothers, the buddy cops from birth and fight bros behind Blacklist Games, Adam Mason Storm and Brady Bob Lee Swagger Sadler.
Hello. Good to be here.
Oh, you just stopped talking. A fighting game is a video game genre in which the player controls an on-screen character, engages in close combat with an opponent, which can be either an AI or controlled by another player. The fight matches typically consist of several rounds and take place in an arena or, like a street, while each character has differing abilities, but each is relatively viable to choose. Question. Sega's boxing game Heavyweight Champ is considered to be the first video game to feature fist fighting. What year was this black and white game released? Hasim Rahman, Russ.
83.
Archie Moore, Adam.
I will say 1986.
Riddick Bo Brady.
89.
80 wrong. 1976.
Ooh.
Wow, you guys weren't even in the right decade, but I like where you're going with this whole age thing. Issue number 2. Action films is a genre in which the protagonist or protagonists are thrust into a series of challenges that typically include violence, extended fighting, physical and frantic chases. Action films tend to feature a resourceful cop hero, often struggling against incredible odds, which include life-threatening situations, a villain, or a pursuit generally concludes in victory for the hero. Question. Although really coming into their heyday, as some may have, some of the best things in life did in the 80s, action films are the direct descendants of a type of theater popular throughout the 1800s, both in Europe and more famously in the Wild West of the United States. What was this type of theater called? Ripley Russ.
Broadville. See what I did there?
Brody Brady.
Silent film.
Utah Adam.
Spaghetti Western.
And the theater. And that makes you all so wrong. I'm going to say it anyway. Wrong. Melodrama is what we were looking for right there. Issue number 3. When we talk about old school video games, you're talking a span that can reach all the way back through the 80s into 78 and even before. That is a lot of factors of 8. But despite the fact that there are countless titles that come up with any list you care to name, I don't even know what I'm saying now. That doesn't stop a daunting number of websites, blogs, vlogs, and magazines from coming up with their own lists, everything from top 100 on down. Question. According to Gamer Women, so says Ranker.com, what is the number 1 classic video game of all time? Hint, it is from the 80s. Resident Evil Russ.
Number 1.
According to the women, folks.
Yeah. King's Quest.
Asteroids Adam.
Super Mario Brothers.
Mario Brothers Brady.
Legend of Zelda.
Wrong! Pac-Man. Blame Ranker.com. Issue number 4. When you're creating a world in which your video game, board game, role-playing game, movie, TV show, novel can reside, often you face the choice of using real place names or creating a wholly fictional place instead. Question. Now, given the intimidating breadth of the topic fictional cities, spanning all those various media and genres and more, you are now put to the question. According to Complex.com's pop culture blog, what is the coolest fictional city of all time? Rapture Russ.
Bespin.
Bikini Bottom Brady.
Vice City.
Arkham Adam.
Rivendell.
Dun, 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 dun.
Springfield.
Springfield. Hey, man, I don't make the opinions. I just report them. That's all we've got for now. Thanks for listening, and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by Lone Wolf Development. Take your game to the next level.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
Hello.
Whoa, in stereo.
It's like stereo.
We're back to last episode.
Welcome to episode 236, Craig,
Yes, 236.
of the D6 Generation. I'm Russ Wakeland.
Six seems to sound a lot like siblings.
Sort of. Yeah, sure.
I'm Craig Gallant.
Hello, I'm Adam Sadler.
And I am Brady Sadler.
Hey, it's the Sadler brothers, Craig. It's like back-to-back bros.
Not to be confused with the Sandler brothers, which can be a very difficult and awkward situation.
There are no ends.
Adam.
Yes.
Correct. I have heard many jokes about that.
Have you ever had somebody be just brutally disappointed when you show up somewhere?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I get Adam Sandler designs games. I didn't know that.
So the gentlemen behind Blacklist Games, we're going to be excited to talk about a lot of cool things today with these gentlemen. First of all, both Adam and Brady are video gamers. And Craig, whenever video gamers come on this show, I've got to
I get tied up in a chair and you just go to town.
Yeah, so we have a great discussion about that coming up. Then, of course, later we're going to chat with these guys about how they got into game design and what they've built so far and where they're going next.
That's
right. So before we get to all that, though, we do have a little bit of some housekeeping here. First of all, we did actually run into the Sadlers here, Craig, at Dunkin' Donuts. And Adam and Brady.
As you do.
Did you guys remember what we talked about when we ran into each other, Dunks?
I'm pretty sure
a lot about video gaming, if I remember correctly.
retro games, yeah.
Yeah, retro games, the old classics.
That's correct.
And even though we are from slightly different generations, we still found a lot of similarities in the games there in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
Which we all realized was still a pretty darn long time ago. Right?
Yeah, it is pretty retro.
It's not that far, but it's pretty far. So anyway, so that was exciting. And Craig, if people want to learn more about the Lost Chapters and listen to this great show and all these times you show up at Dunkin' Donuts, what should they do, Craig? What should they
Take
do?
the opportunity to become patrons over at patreon.com, either going to the d6generation.com and clicking on the Patreon button, or going to patreon.com and clicking and searching for the D6 Generation. Either way, they'll go to the D6 Generation page, check out what we're all doing there, what we're all about, and what you get for a little money that you kick into the tip jar there to keep the show going, keep the lights on, keep us rolling. And also, if you are pledging $2 or more per download that we do or thing that we do, which
I think it's called an episode.
I think it might be an episode, which we do. Of course, we do 2 of those a month, and you unlock the entire library of Lost Chapters.
Right. Exceptional.
Yes.
So, Craig, what's it time now for?
It's time for me to move everything and go achievements in gaming.
Yes, it is. And achievements, of course, brought to us by all our fine patrons and the people who are even on live right now listening to us, like Sean Murray. Hi, Sean, and thank you for joining us today in the chat room. So, what have you guys been playing lately? Board games, card games, RPGs, non-video games here at the table. Brady, why don't we start with you? What have you been playing lately?
Well, actually, tonight I had a pretty good game session with my 6-year-old daughter. She'd been begging me to play because I've been reading up on the Genesis RPG system that Fantasy Flight does.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the Star Wars Edge of the Empire, and I was looking forward to the Realms of Terrinoth because obviously Adam and I have some experience working in Realms of Terrinoth, the setting. So yeah, we rolled up some characters, and this was her first time really. She plays a lot of games with me. She's pretty advanced with what she understands, but
Nice.
I wasn't sure how well she'd take on an RPG. So tonight we just kind of made our characters a little bit, and she's playing an elf named Rosie with a werewolf pet.
I love it. A werewolf pet.
Yeah.
Good to have a werewolf pet.
Yeah. So she caught on pretty well. We had just one encounter where her dad walked in on her stuffing a bunch of candy into her backpack before school, and she had to do a cunning test to try to lie to him, saying, no, it's pencils and stuff. And she thought it was hilarious. So that was a blast. I had a lot of fun with that.
I love it. Now, is your daughter, did she really get into it? Because when my kids were that age, I started experimenting with role playing, and they loved it because basically it's storytelling, and kids love storytelling.
Oh yeah, I was surprised. Yeah, she came out of her shell and she was like dancing around the room saying what she was doing, and I was like, "What? You're better at role playing than I am. This is crazy."
Well, it's true. The kids like they have no inhibitions, right? They get
right.
And you did a similar trick. I don't know when my kids first started playing and they were very young. I felt like I wanted to have a safety net for them that wasn't too contrived. So I too gave them like an NPC companion that then the DM can kind of use to like a last minute save the day if something goes sideways, because I was always nervous about what happens. They put so much time into their character and then they die or get seriously injured. So I was kind of trying to, but it ended up not being necessary. And in fact, later I had to write the character out because he was just kind of flunking in the way. But it was a cool, it was a nice safety net. So for folks who are playing RPGs with the young kids, it's a good way to give them a little bit of room to mess up.
Yeah. The funny thing was that I was rolling up a gnome in a politician guy,
right?
And I was doing his traits randomly, like his weaknesses and his strengths and stuff. And I rolled up that he was a compulsive liar. And I'm thinking, this is going to be really hard to role play with my 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So I'll know what's going on.
This is fiction, honey. So what I'm going to do now, don't do in real life.
Right.
Exactly. So what else you playing, Brady?
I've also been playing some a lot of the Arkham Horror card game Fantasy Flight does. I've been following that a lot. I was a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings back from when we still worked at FFG. I helped play test that during development, and I'm a huge cooperative. I mean, we only ever really designed cooperative games, so I'm obviously a cooperative game fan. But the Arkham setting always appeals to me. I just always liked the era and the crazy mythos they have around that. And the card game is just pretty much like as close to a mechanical card game representation of a role-playing game as you can get, but with a pre-scripted story. So it does a really good job conveying that. And I'm just keeping up with all the packs, playing them as they come out, and just want more all the time.
Nice. Anything else on the list?
The one other one I've been kind of rediscovering. I've had it for a while, but I broke it back off the shelf. Was this game called V Commandos, and it kind of flew under the radar. It was on Kickstarter. It did pretty well. It didn't really explode or anything, but it's this cooperative World War II squad-based game where if you remember the old EDOS PC games like Commandos Behind Enemy Lines, it's pretty much like a board game version of that, where you're playing as you have the Marine, you have the sniper, and you have all these different commandos from different parts of the world, and you just join up and go do missions. And it's essentially a miniatures type game, but they use tokens instead of miniatures for budget, because there's a ton of characters in the game, ton of like Nazi soldiers walking around and stuff. But it's got a cool stealth system where your commandos have two sides when they're visible and one when they're stealth, and that's pretty much driving the whole all the rules of the game are kind of revolved around the stealth mechanic. So it's kind of got a simple rule set, but it's got a lot of depth because there's so many missions in the game, and it's very replayable. So I've been having a lot of fun with that one.
Nice. Cool. Very cool. Awesome. What about you, Adam? What have you been playing lately?
So I've been getting back into Necromunda with Games Workshop's re-release of that. I missed it when I was younger because we got into Games Workshop games. We played Warhammer and the bigger games, and I missed Necromunda, but I caught up with it years later and regretted not getting into it. So I jumped at the chance when it came out again. I've bought like everything, 2 copies of everything.
Right.
But yeah, I've been playing that. Really, really digging it. I like what they did with it. They changed it up. The integrated turn structure is nice.
Yes.
Really looking forward to getting a campaign going once all the gangs are out.
Sweet. Yeah, the new version is really great. Craig and I have had a lot of fun with it so far too.
Yeah, I'm digging it. I've also been playing a little bit of the Underworld Shadespire game they do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
pretty impressed with that game. How quick it is. It's anybody who's not a big miniatures gamer can hop in and start playing it right away if you have their decks built for them. And it plays in like 15, 20 minutes, so you can get a few games in an afternoon. It's pretty fun. And
they've got a lot of war bands out now for that too.
Yeah, I think 2 more are coming out this weekend.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool. What's your favorite war band for Shadespire?
I'm a Stormcast guy. I like the big armored angel guys. We also got Brady and I got an advanced copy of Street Masters, a game we had on Kickstarter last year that funded, and it's getting ready to ship to backers. But we got an advanced copy, and we've been playing that a lot too.
So, were you happy with the final? I know we'll talk more later, but were you happy with the final results?
Oh yeah, we were blown away with the quality.
Yeah. And that's something I didn't want to self-plug too much, but that game, when we got our hands on it, I played it pretty much consistently 4 or 5 times a day, every day for like almost 2 weeks straight.
Nice.
Got it because we were so impressed by the quality, and it plays great solo. So I would just play it by myself all day. I was just couldn't stop playing it.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great sign.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep.
Awesome, Craig. What about you? What have you been playing lately?
Well, let's see. You and I played Drop Fleet Commander. We
did our first non-demo game.
Yep. And I think my main problem with that is going to be I'm like, as Russ kept saying, locked in a 2-dimensional mindset.
Yes.
Forgetting that although all the cool stuff is happening in orbit, all of the points, victory points, are to be had on the planet's surface. And so I was doing all kinds of cool stuff and blowing Russ's ships up. And meanwhile, he was just taking over the whole planet.
Well, there's a couple things that happen. So what's interesting is most space combat.
Yeah.
Right. There's a couple they've experimented with this, but most of them don't, right? They just ignore it. And it's basically naval combat in space. Yeah. Well, and when we played the demo, I caught this, but I didn't really catch it as much as I did this time, where not only is there the landing part. So to your point, Craig, you got to get on the ground and get victory points, but also because there's different layers of atmosphere. So there's upper atmo, there's lower atmosphere, and then there's in atmosphere, right? And if you get on the in atmosphere, you better be atmospheric craft or you crash and burn. So you want to stay out of that. But if you're in upper and lower, if you're in lower and someone else is in upper, because you're shooting sort of like through changes in atmosphere, minuses to hit.
Right. So, it's almost like you're carrying in any other miniatures game. It would be like you're carrying terrain or the ability to create terrain around with you.
So what ended up happening was we had a big sort of furball going on in one area, but I had some of my ships in upper atmosphere and some of my ships in lower atmosphere.
Orbit is what
orbit. Sorry, yes, upper and lower orbit. And so Craig was faced with the dilemma because you can have one ship go weapons free and fire at everybody, but he had to choose a layer, and so he couldn't actually maximize his fire against everyone. He had to either decide he's going to go, and the problem was going up required more movement as well. So he couldn't get fully in range. So it did cause him a tactical conundrum, which was really cool. And most sci-fi games don't, most space combat games don't allow for anything.
It's a simple mechanic, but it's a really cool way that they dealt with it.
Yeah, I like this game a lot. It took us a lot longer to play than I'd hoped, but we spent a lot of time setting up. We were looking up like pretty much freaking every rule.
Not a big fan of the way the rule book is.
No, it's not a good reference, and there's no good reference sheet.
There is now, Russ.
Excellent.
I just spent the last 2 days making one, and I think I got everything on there.
We'll have to share that on the intertubes, but this has got real potential. I think with a few more plays and a good reference sheet, this will play just as fast as pretty much any other good sized miniature game. And I think there's a lot going on in this game to like. I just hope the company keeps on trucking.
Yeah, I hope so. It's not easy to find these things. If anybody's out there, get it, buy it, show them that you're interested so we can keep it alive, because I want it to live. Yeah. And then Russ accidentally drank a giant barrel of tequila.
I don't know if it was accidentally. It was pretty purposeful. It was willful intent.
You ordered the barrel by accident.
Well, the thing is, so we go to this particular Mexican restaurant, which we really like, and I normally order their large margarita. But what I forgot is they also have like a gigantic margarita.
Yeah.
And so when he said the two sizes, I just said the larger one, and I forgot. I didn't realize he was offering me like the bucket. So I ended up with a bucket of tequila.
Russ had to go home.
Which, yes, but I was planning on leaving anyway. But I really had to go home
anyway. He was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go all in.
It's gonna go right.
So I always have that problem with ice cream.
Yes, it's similar. It's similar.
You know what he just did to you? He just dragon and flagon cookie plated you.
It was well played, sir.
So Russ went home, and Rafe and our friends Christian and Matt, and then a friendly neighborhood gamer. I call him Twin Number One.
Okay.
There's two twins that play at the same game store, and I forgot.
Hey, that's my nickname.
Yeah, I was going to say it's Adam.
Twin Number One. There you go.
Oh my God! You go through the Dunkin' Donuts. And we played Firefly Adventures again. We had a blast, but I am realizing that I must have pulled a Joe Skandarian. Russ is what I did.
Okay.
And I completely skipped over one chunk of the rule book.
Right.
Because it's good. It's a good thing that I did. I mean, I'm glad that I did because I like the game more the way it's playing now. Because buying your equipment was this big chunk that kind of like slowed the start of the game down, and it kind of took everybody out. And it was this big, like, oh, what do we need? We're going to buy that. We're going to buy that. You know, we have $3,000, and it's actually supposed to be a draft of only 5 cards. So you're not supposed to have access to the entire
deck. Right.
And so I think that's going to make the missions a lot more difficult, but a lot more interesting, I think.
Well,
I was tempted to pick that one up, the Firefly Adventures, but I heard there was the rules weren't as clear as they could have been. Did you have that problem with it?
No, not really. I mean, the one time that I thought I had come up with something that wasn't addressed in the rules, we were playing. We went all out and we played one of the really big missions that uses all of the goons. So we didn't have any extra goons, and several times something bad happened that would cause a goon to show up on the table, but we didn't have any more models. And I was like, let's just re-roll it because I don't think the rule book addresses it. And while I was saying that, Rafe started looking it up and was like, oh no, you're supposed to actually activate the closest goon. And so, yeah, I think I haven't really encountered anything that wasn't in the rule book. And it's not a big rule book, so it's not like you got to flip through it forever to find stuff. So I would disagree with that, with interpretation. At least that's not how we've found it. But we've been playing as a fun, fast, loose, none of us have been looking at it as like a super, super chunky game anyway. But so that was fun, and it was an hour and a half exactly. So that was good. It was like it didn't overstay its welcome. And today I had a bunch of kids in my acting class that were sick, and so we didn't have enough people to be doing the rehearsal that we were supposed to be doing. So we played Codenames, and that game is still fun, even for a group. I think there were 10 kids that we were playing with, and that's still a fun game. What about you?
Well, we already talked about Drop Fleet. So the only game I played, kind of a not very busy gaming week, but I did play D&D for about 5 hours. My brother's campaign this time. We were supposed to split, so we were supposed to do about 3 hours of his and 3 hours of mine. But he really wanted to get to a certain point, and it took a little more than 3 hours. So we ended up not having time for my campaign, which has now caused a problem because everybody wants to play in mine as well. So we have to find time during April vacation for that. But we had a great time. We've gotten to the stage now where all the characters are getting nicknames that the owners don't want them to have, which is always a fun part of the campaign because basically people have made mistakes and they're sticking with them. So those are always fun to watch. So yeah, it's good times. I just can't say enough good things about D&D 5th edition. That's just
it's really good. I agree with you.
Wonderful system. So what about modeling? Painting, construction. Adam, what have you been building and painting lately? I'm sensing Necromunda based on your earlier reports.
Yes. I have been painting, assembling my Orlok warband gang. So I built one out, geared them up with pointed them out and everything. And before I started assembling, because I wanted to assemble them as they were equipped in my list. So that was really fun. There's a lot of options. I've spent the whole week painting them as fast as I could to get them on the table. And that kind of interrupted my Age of Sigmar painting that I'm doing. I'm painting up a Stormcast army, which I was trying to get done before Adepticon, but I got all but one unit painted, so at least I got to play with most of them painted at Adepticon. Okay. So that was fun, and that's kind of the majority of the painting I've been doing lately. I keep my painting station right here on my work desk, so when I have free time I can chip away at some stuff. But I just picked up the re-release the Games Workshop did of the War Scryer Citadel, which is an old Warhammer terrain piece. It's a huge tower. Got that all assembled, and I'm still got to get around to painting it. Keep finding reasons not to, and I need to do it because it looks so awesome. But yeah, it's just sitting there primed black on my shelf. taunting me.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, it's. I'm sorry, it's taunting you, but it's cool that it's cool.
Yeah,
I bet it's going to be awesome when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a good looking piece. I hope they keep doing that, releasing their old plastic terrain kits because they all look good.
What about you, Brady?
Well, I got my I don't do as much painting and modeling as Adam, obviously, but I have my paint station ready to go whenever GW decides to release some halfling models. And I'll be ready to roll.
Maybe halflings have vehicles they can get in and out of. That'd be
right. Yeah.
They say it'll be coming for Blood Bowl
right,
someday,
exactly.
so I will be able to play Brady in Blood Bowl someday.
But I have been I actually have been painting for the first time in a couple years. I haven't painted since I did a bunch of figures for that Myth game that came out.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
I painted those up when we were working on the side game on that line. But the Street Masters figures I've been painting up for convention, so we have like a painted set for demoing it. So I'm pretty much about 75% done with all of the. I got the core game all painted, but now I'm doing all the stretch goal stuff and the expansion.
So how many
stuff,
models are in the core game?
Is it 65, Adam?
Wow, that's
65,
nice.
I think. Yeah,
there's a bunch of minis in there.
Nice.
The only problem is there's a lot of the same minions, so you have to paint the same sculpt a few times, which gets kind of.
There's no more than 5 though. No more than 5 of each, so that's not too bad.
It's like a bunch of squads. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's awesome. So, Craig, what about you?
I've just been working on those 2 drop fleets. So the PHR, the Post-Human Republic, and the Scourge that came with the starter box.
What do you think of assembling those guys?
I find it daunting because you've got a lot of options. The cruisers probably make you get 2 cruisers in a box and you can make them into one of any, I think there's 6 to 8 options.
Mm-hmm.
And then the frigates come either 4 in a starter fleet or 8 in the frigate box, and each sprue can make 2 of each kind of 5 different kinds. So you got to pour over the rules and which one you kind of have to, unless you're going to magnetize, which is way beyond my modeling skill at this scale. You kind of have to make some calls, and I actually made a call with the Scourge, and then changed my mind and had to go back and cut the pieces off. And
wow, you're really hardcore.
Dashed it back on there.
Yeah.
But they look awesome. They look really cool. They're neat. I think each of we now have 3 fleets amongst the 2 of us, and then there's the Sheltari that we haven't played with yet, but. I mean, they each have a very unique identity. They've got very cool kind of unified ship designs for each race.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been enjoying them.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on mine too, and I found I like the assembly a lot. And there's a lot of little parts, but it was fun.
Yeah.
But you're right. You have to make some decisions because each weapon is very uniquely sculpted on the ship. Yeah. And the mistake I made was I did not catch that there were minimum squadron sizes. And so I made a couple of ships that were different, but I couldn't field them that way. So I had to kind of do, play as rules until I can get more frigates. But I'm not going to rip mine apart because I like the ship I made. I just need more to be able to legally field what I did. Right. But yeah, I'm really impressed with the models, and they've been fun to prime. The only other thing I modeled was I did get, I think I mentioned last time, I got my giant not Tiamat model from Reaper. All built last time we talked about it, and I got her primed, but now I started to put get some paint on her. And so my goal is each week, because in the campaign, the heroes are trying to prevent Tiamat from being brought back to the prime material plane from the 9 hells. They're trying to stop this. So each week I'm going to add more paint, just leave Tiamat sitting, kind of next to the DM screen. So it's kind of like she's getting closer, and they're going to hopefully try to stop her. And the best part, I think I mentioned this, was the kids did some research and figured out they're like, well, we could probably take her. And they looked up and she's challenge rating 30. So,
what's going to happen, Russ, is you're going to have it painted perfectly and love it. And then they're going to prevent her from ever hitting the table.
I mean, yes, but that's okay. Because, the other thing too about it is, and I'm going to sound like a sentimental dad, but this is the first real big D&D campaign. I mean, they've been playing it since they were 12, and I'm playing with my niece and nephew as well. So this will eventually end, but I'll have this nice model to kind of remember, that campaign. So it's got to be a sentimental thing, but it's cool too. And it's just a kick-ass model. I mean, it's great to have an excuse to paint this thing up because it's just a beautiful model. So
I'm sure Nicole awesome. Won't have a problem with you getting a pedestal and putting.
Yeah, it should be right in the living room, right? That's why. What about other stuff? What about books, TV shows, comic books? Let's start with Adam this time. We mixed up. Adam, What have you been watching and reading?
So for shows, I got to watch that Altered Carbon show on Netflix. I loved it. It was awesome.
So good. I was so good.
I went into it not really knowing much about it, and I was kind of bored one day, so I was like, I'll just start a new show randomly, and that one looked interesting, so I started it, and I got hooked after the first 10 minutes. I was like, okay, I got to watch the whole thing, so I finished it in a few days.
Great show.
Really, really liked it. Yeah. And I'm actually rewatching for the 20th time Battlestar Galactica. Because,
which one?
The reboot,
so the one where Starbuck is a woman, right?
Yeah. And I'm watching it because I've realized that my girlfriend had never seen it. And so I'm making her watch the whole thing.
Is she a sci-fi fan, or are you kind of getting her into the whole genre?
Yes. Yeah. She's fairly.
Well, that's easy stuff.
Yeah. She got hooked right after the first episode, so she's enjoying it. And we just fight about. I keep telling her how cool Guy Spaltar is, and she hates him. So,
have you guys watched? Have you watched the new Lost in Space yet on Netflix?
Not yet.
If you want,
I'm excited to.
If you want a villain you love to hate, they did such a good job with the new Dr. Smith in that series. And you guys probably don't remember the original Lost in Space. You don't have to know anything about the original. You can not even know that it existed. There's little nods to it, but it's completely self-contained, and the actors are all great. The plots are great, but Dr. Smith is so freaking devious, like Baltar. But then the next minute you're kind of like, is she really that devious, or is she kind of okay? So but anyway, if you like those kind of characters, go for it.
Definitely. Yeah, I like those kind of characters. And then a more lighthearted show that I've been watching recently was Last Man on Earth.
I watched a couple of those. Have you stuck with it? Does it keep getting?
Yeah, it's goofy. Yeah. It's really goofy. It's a funny premise because the world's been wiped out by disease, and this guy's like the last man on Earth, and starts slowly finding other people. And it's just a really goofy comedy, but it's kind of dark.
The first season was not the greatest start to it, but season 2 is amazing.
I should come back to it though. I watched season 1 and I was kind of, it's okay.
Yeah. The whole season 1 was just basically how horrible can we make this movie?
Yes.
But then he kind of redeems himself.
Yeah, well,
it's like, okay,
there's that self-depreciation mode, and like he's kind of just the bumbling fool throughout it, and he's not trying to be vindictive. It's hilarious. He's so good.
And then as for books, this goes along with my theme of getting back into Necromunda. They did a POD batch of all their old Necromunda novels, which I bought a bunch of those. And so I was reading the Cal Jericho collection, The Redeemer, and now I'm on the novel called Junction. So I'm kind of catching up on some of the Necromunda lore, getting more into the game, into the setting.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
That's about it for me.
So for shows, I was also actually just recently catching up on Last Man on Earth too, and I'm loving that. And a lot of the shows I was watching, like the more of the serious stuff, I've kind of wrapped up. So I've been in this phase where mostly I'm just watching TV in the background while I'm doing other things, like watching sitcoms and stuff. But I caught this new show on HBO called Barry. Have you guys heard of that?
I have not.
Okay, it's interesting. It's Bill Hader, the comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a pretty funny guy, but he's playing this kind of serious role where the show is about a kind of uncompassionate. He's kind of this. He's a hitman, and he's kind of numb to just everything, like numb to emotions. He has no feeling about killing people and stuff. He's kind of getting burnt out on this work, even though he's getting all this money and he doesn't have a problem with the work. He's good at it. But he, while he's going through this weird phase in his life, he happens to go into a acting class in Hollywood because one of his targets is in Hollywood, and he catches these people trying to they're trying to act, but they're exposing themselves in the process. They're being emotional on stage, and he finds out so fascinating, so he gets really hooked on it. So the show is about him trying to balance his life as a hitman while exploring this revelation of acting class, and it's just really weird and bizarre. The tone is kind of mixed because it goes from really serious action, like dark stuff, and then it goes to this kind of silly, lighthearted, awkward guy trying to be cool in Hollywood. But it's interesting, and he does a really good job from moving from the weird comedy he does to this. So I've been pretty intrigued by that so far.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, that's part of my only like serious show. I've been watching a lot of like old sitcoms and stuff on top of that. But yeah, so for books though, I've actually been a lot more busy on that end because I've been revisiting a lot of the old DC stuff I loved. Like I'm a huge Robin fan, like Tim Drake Robin from the 90s. So I've been rereading all the like the Nightfall and all the Robin solo series, and because we had a couple potential opportunities to do a DC game, so like I'd always be in that mode, like getting ready to do all the research and stuff. And it's not really a work for me because I love the stuff, but that's been fun. And then also I've actually been slowly getting back into writing because I started out in game design as a novelist, which I can go into more during that discussion. But I wrote one fantasy book that was supposed to be part of a trilogy. So I've taken a break from that, but now that we're working on one of our next big projects is going to be a fantasy like dungeon crawl type adventure game, and I have all this lore that I do for it. So I'm actually planning out this book series for that. So I'm revisiting Steven Eriksson's series, because I really love the tone that he did. The Gardens of the Moon, what's the name of that series? Book of the Fallen, Malazan or whatever. Are you guys familiar with that one?
I read the first book and I can't, but all the names you're throwing out sound close.
Yeah, I think it's like Malazan, Book of the Fallen or something. And I'll admit, the first book of that series, Gardens of the Moon, I hated it the first time I read it. Like I almost despised it. I don't know how I got through it. It was that bad for me. But then for some reason, I got inspired to go back because I wanted to read the rest of the series. It was a huge series. It was still going on at the time. And by my halfway through my second read, I was like, wow, this guy is a genius. I don't know what it was that was different for me, but I got really into it. And I've actually only gotten to book 3 or 4, so I kind of want to go back and reread that series as I get more into that mindset.
I don't remember hating it, but I remember it just didn't like grab me enough to jump into the next book. So
yeah, the world is kind of weird, like the setting.
Yeah, it is. I remember,
and I think it's because it's jolting as well. Like, it's really militaristic, and it's almost like World War I or World War II vibes, but it's still fantasy and it's still like low tech and everything. But it's kind of a weird mix. But it does kind of get me in that mindset more, and I just can't escape from fantasy. I keep coming back to it. So
right, cool.
So that's my book adventures.
Sweet, cool. Craig, what have you been watching and reading?
Well, speaking of books that did grab me to the point where I jumped right into the next one, would be the Powder Mage trilogy,
right?
That Ross got us into, and then you jumped in, and then you dragged me in after you. And I literally actually downloaded Crimson Campaign Book 2 before I finished the first one, and I am now firmly into Crimson Campaign, enjoying it. I love everything that's happening about it now, and that's all I'll say about it. I think I overshared last time. I don't want to take it. On the TV side of things, I thought to give a Series of Unfortunate Events another shot with Reese, because I tried last year when it first came out, and he was like, eh. And this time he watched both of the first 2 episodes without moving. So
there you go.
I think I might have got him. At Russ's insistence, I tried Lost in Space, and I only watched the first episode, but I thought it was really cool, and I agree. She's a very intriguing bad guy.
Oh, just wait. Yeah. Just wait. Yeah. Oh, my God.
And then the Walking Dead season finale, as I've said, with my relationship with Walking Dead is very passing acquaintance-like now, but I really enjoyed the season finale because it was like I didn't really care about the main characters, and I really care mainly about the peripheral characters who kind of starred the most in the season finale. And I wasn't bothered at all. There's a weird thing that happens at the end where they're going to hint at what's coming next, and I was like, that makes no sense, but I don't care because I don't care about any of those people. So it was an intriguing little thing for me. That was me. Ross, what about you?
Well, let's see. Also enjoyed the Powder Mage series. I'm in book 2 myself as well. Really pleased with the ending of book 1. So loving Lost in Space. I think we're on like episode 9. I'm sad because I think there's only 10 or 11 episodes. It's Netflix, so they dumped them all. It's fantastic. I mean, it stands up on its own. It doesn't need the original at all. But there's lots of neat little nods to it. Also, we're having a blast with season 2 of Unfortunate Events. Still really enjoying Full Metal Alchemist with the kids. That is a great dark sort of anime show. This is sort of came out of left field, but I can't remember how we started this. I think it was we were starting to make jokes, and my daughters were talking about something about how people don't understand how the internet works. Oh, I know. It was when Zuckerberg was from Facebook was testifying, and they were asking all these questions about him, and it looked like Zuckerberg was dodging the question, but I think he was just trying not to say, "Senator, you're an idiot." You know? So basically my daughters are starting to joke about, like, do these guys not know how the internet works? And I said, well, no, it's because everybody thinks you can fool people about the internet, like in the IT crowd when they showed them the internet was a black box. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, have you never seen, and I'd forgotten my daughters had never really watched the IT crowd. So I pulled up on YouTube, you know, they have all the shorts, the little segments from the show up there. And I showed them the bit about and if you've never seen the show, the IT crowd, it is a British comedy. It was done in the mid 2000s, and it's basically the story of these two IT guys, right? So tech guys that live in the basement of a building, and these are the guys that you call when your computer doesn't work. And the one guy, he's famous for always saying, he answers the phone, yes, if you turned it off and on again, you know, and that's his job. But the funny part is this woman is put down there with them, and she's the manager, but she doesn't know anything about computers. And so it's really these two super nerdy guys and their adventures. But if you want to see one of the best shorts from the show, go to YouTube and type in IT, the letters IT, space, the word crowd, and then internet. And you will see the segment of the episode where they fool their manager into believing she has this big presentation to do. And so they decide to play a joke on her, and they give her this little black box with a blinking light. And they said, you know, Jen, we're going to give you the entire internet. This is it. And she's like, what? You don't you plug it in? Or he said, Jen, it's the internet. It's wireless. The whole scene, you have to watch it. It's hilarious. And the show's full of that. Like, if you think that's funny, do IT crowd Dungeons and Dragons. There's a whole episode about it's fantastic. And so we started watching the show again with the kids, and they are just rolling on the floor. It still holds up. Great show. Great. And the actors are fantastic.
I still remember watching their new season where they did their board game podcast. I saw my game on one of my old games on their shelf. I was like, I designed that game.
Yes, the board game episode was great. Another one was great was the what do they call it? My Book, the one where they were actually all texting each other. We're in the same room. Like, that's so Jen, you know, and she's right, they're ignoring her. It's that's just there's so many good things in that show. And last, and I mentioned to Craig before, but have you guys seen the Santa Clarita Diet?
My wife loves it. Yeah, we watched it like in 2 nights, I think it was. That
show. If you're burnt out on The Walking Dead, just watch the show. I'm just telling you, it is such a good show. The actors are great. I already talked to Craig about this before, but we just finished it.
I need to.
Oh my god!
I think Timothy Oliphant is just fantastic in that show.
The best role by far.
By far, he's great. He's great in everything he does. But so yeah, and we're going to talk about video games later. So that's it. Is that all of our achievements?
That's achieving.
And now, in an attempt to bring a small amount of dignity and decorum to this otherwise base form of entertainment, and I use the term loosely, I am proud to present... Oh, get on with it. It's time for App of the Ep. Seriously, Wakeland, I used to have my own segment, and now I'm relegating to announcing this pap. Hey, you're lucky we still use you. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another App of the Ep. This time around, it's more than an app this time. We're going to be talking about God of War, the latest game in the God of War series, just called God of War. And man, is it good. Now, I've as longtime listeners will know, I got a PS4 a couple years ago. The girls did a PS4 Pro when the Christmas after it came out. And I've been dabbling in it. I caught up on a lot of the classic series on PS4 Pro, like Uncharted, played Horizon Zero Dawn. Really enjoyed that. Got the God of War collection. There was a remastered one or something, one of their earlier games. Enjoyed it, but it was very actiony. I liked it though. I mean, I liked the story. I liked the idea of it, but it was very actiony. So I kind of didn't really get to the end of it, although I did have fun with it. But when the new one started coming out, there was so much discussion by critics around how different it was. Its ratings were crazy, so I had to try it out. And boy, am I glad I did. First of all, it really takes advantage of the power and the graphics of the PS4 Pro. I'm sure it looks fantastic on a normal PS4 as well, so I don't let that be a stopper for you. But if you happen to have splurged on a Pro and have a really good 4K HDR television, this thing's really going to put it through its paces, which is wonderful. But that's not the cool part of the game. I mean, that's just a nice bonus. But this game at like 2 resolutions lower would still be wonderful, because what they really did here, they did a couple things that are really pretty cool. First of all, it still very much reminds me of God of War games. It's mostly about fighting and combat, not unlike Monster Hunter's about fighting and combat. But there's really cool nuances to how his various weapons work, which I enjoy. And the combat's great, very strategic. You got a lot of options, which is wonderful. But that's not even the best part of the game. The best part of the game, there's really 2 amazing parts. First, there's the story. And what makes the story wonderful is really the relationship with his boy, his son, who he calls boy pretty much most of the game. And just the interaction there is just fantastic. In the beginning, he is very standoffish with the boy, doesn't really do much with him, and to watch the boy is almost like estranged from his father and doesn't really know what to make of him. And they do a good job of both making that connection and watching both characters develop, but also do a fantastic job of using the boy's relationship to fill in the backstory of the protagonist. So even if you don't know any other God of War games, and I really don't, I may have dabbled, but I don't really understand the story or follow it. You don't have to. It's completely self-contained. Do not let the fact that this is another game in a game of a long line, like 4 or 5, whatever they're on now. Don't worry about that. But that relationship is so well developed. But also what's really cool is the mechanics of the relationship is really fun as well. So the boy interacts with your opponents, and it's very much a somewhat open world RPG, but also very much an RPG in terms of you're leveling up your main character, you're leveling up the boy, you're leveling up the boy's outfits, you're leveling up what the boy can do, and he really adds a lot of tactical options to the combat in really interesting ways. So it's really neat how they use him both for storytelling as well as for combat mechanics. Really slick. Also for puzzle solving too. It's got that Tomb Raider-y vibe going on this time around, where not only are you fighting really interestingly, but then you get to spots where there's a puzzle to solve, right? Or Uncharted, both those kind of games. And the puzzle, there's sort of, as you acquire resources, a lot of the key resources are put behind puzzles that you want to unlock, and you get pretty interested in unlocking them because some of the resources are really cool. Like there's these apples you find, and every set of 3 of them ups your max hit points, which is a pretty big deal, right? But to do that, each of these chests has got some kind of rune puzzle in the nearby area you got to figure out, and sometimes it requires the using of the boy to get that done. But the other part of the game that's wonderful, well, there's 2 more parts of the game I really love. Second, I'm really into Norse stuff lately. I don't think it's because of the Avengers. I think it's more because of watching Vikings a lot, and although Loki's awesome. And so this time around, the fact that God of War, Kratos there, the main character, he's of course from the Greek side of the house, usually fighting Greek gods, but now he's here fighting Norse gods, and they do a really good job of playing that off of each other. And the dialogue, the characters, and the Norse gods as they appear are just so nicely done. And it really reminds me of the characters in Vikings, just sort of brought to life. Just so nicely done as well. So if you're a fan of Norse mythos, you owe it to yourself to play this game. But then the third thing they did that's just jaw-droppingly cool, and you won't notice this until someone tells you, and then as soon as they tell you, you're like, wait, what? The camera in this game never, ever leaves the protagonist. Ever. Okay? I mean, now think about that for a minute. It never cuts away for a different shot. It never pulls far. It pulls back sometimes a little bit, but it never like switches to another point of view. Really, it never ever goes and shows you a scene of some other people that you're not involved with. It is always like over to the point where, like, if you're fighting a super powerful opponent and they punch you and you go flying, the camera follows you as you go flying. Now, this is really, the second part is there's no load screens. Once the game actually starts up, after it loads, there is no load screens and you move from area to area. There's no pausing. It's very fluid. So imagine it's like watching a television show where it's always a single shot. The camera never, ever, ever cuts away. And what makes this really interesting is there are some really clever stuff happening here to tell a cohesive story without ever changing the angle from the point of view of the protagonist. It's actually really hard to do that. It's hard to do that in a movie, and it's super hard to do it in a video game. And they nail it. And they nail it in a way that is really, really interesting. Even when like a villain shows up and he starts pontificating, right? You can't zoom in on the villain's face because you got to stay at the angle of the hero. And if the player's trolling the camera around and doing whatever they want to do, you still got to kind of hear the story. So there's moments where you kind of lose control for a second, but otherwise, this is really neat. So I think this game is a must-play game for all of the reasons I gave. One, it just looks beautiful and really takes advantage of modern hardware on a modern platform, both televisions as well as the PlayStation 4 Pro. Secondly, it is just a really interesting take on the world and the crafting. The relationship with the boy is fantastic. The combat mechanics, the RPGs are fantastic. And then also this idea that the camera never leaves the person. It may have been done before in a game somewhere, but not that I really noticed, and not to this level of quality. So check it out. The new God of War. This is a must-play gaming experience. It is a game that's going to be spoken about for years and years to come. Check it out. Latest God of War, PS4. And try it on the Pro if you got one lying about.
Thank you for listening to another scintillating edition of App of the App, a segment in which,
Hey, less of that. More just getting on with the show.
seriously, Wakeland, you are like school in summer. No class.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. And of course, we've got Adam and Brady with us, and we've already talked to them a little bit earlier in the show, all about them and their games and their interest in video games and stuff. And of course, if you're a patron, you know that we chatted. Well, everybody but me chatted. I jumped in there in the end a little bit at Dunkin' Donuts about video games. But now it's ideal, really, the perfect time to talk about the state of video games right now, correct? Like you're
what we're playing today, what the quality of the field is, if it
with console games and video games. I'm sure somebody's gonna wedge a phone game in there somewhere.
Why not?
I'm like completely stoned on cold meds, so this is perfect timing.
There you go. Excellent. So this is fantastic because and when Rafe used to be on the show, we do this once in a while because Rafe's a video gamer too. But with Craig not playing video games,
in a video game desert.
Now I am spoiled for options here because you guys both play games. Of course, I play them. So it's great to talk about what you're playing. And I love doing this because I love to hear what games we're all enjoying together, but then also get some good tips for games I should be playing, but I'm not.
You got a 2-for-1 deal too, because we both play video games.
Right.
So
this is fantastic. So what are you guys playing lately? Why don't we start off, Adam? Why don't you pick one of your games and we'll go around the table here. So Adam, what have you been playing lately?
So I mainly play PC games these days. I have an Xbox and a Nintendo Switch. It just doesn't.
Right.
I don't play them that often. So recently, I picked up the Warhammer Vermintide 2 on the PC.
Well, I played the first. How are you liking the second?
I like the first one. The second one is just everything better. Like it's awesome. It's really fun. It's very, very much immersive into the old world, which I miss.
Nice.
It's awesome. Like it's just so much fun. It's
pre-Age of Sigmar.
Correct. That's
not.
Well, there is no old world Age of Sigmar.
Now,
that's the whole point. It's the whole point.
I will caveat that I do like Age of Sigmar a lot. I play Age of Sigmar. I'm a big fan of Warhammer in general. But I do love the old world.
You're the first person I think we've met who plays Age.
Oh, really?
Owen plays Age of Sigmar. Come on.
Owen does.
He does. Yes, he does.
Now that is, but I do love the old world. That's what got me into tabletop gaming when I was in my teens. I love the old world. So being able to play a really beautiful looking first person game. The only thing missing in that is I want to play a warrior priest. But other than that, it's
okay.
You're killing my favorite villains. Skaven like the perfect villain. So it's all fun.
Villain. And I like the co-op mode. My daughters and I are playing the original together for quite a bit. And I really liked how it worked, and you're really working together, and the pressure of time and the different scenarios. I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Left 4 Dead, it's basically like Left 4 Dead in the Warhammer world.
That's right. It's Warhammer Left 4 Dead. It's a great way to describe it. That's what the first one was. So the second one's just more of the same with slightly tweaked graphics.
It's bigger. Like the levels are way better designed. Like the graphics are gorgeous. But they also introduced Chaos Warriors. So you're fighting Skaven and also Chaos Worshippers of Nurgle. So it's very diseasey. But basically, the story is the Skaven and the Nurgle are kind of allying to open some nasty portal to bring the end times. So you're fighting a lot of Skaven and some Chaos.
And the hero classes too. They added those new class things.
So there were 5 heroes in the first game: the Witch Hunter, the Empire Dude, the Bright Wizard, the Elf, and the Dwarf. But now each one of those characters has 3 different careers. So, for example, the Witch Hunter can be either a Witch Hunter, a Bounty Hunter, or a Zealot, which is like crazy guy with a flail. So there's basically 15 characters in the game.
Oh, nice. Well, that's awesome.
But they still need a halfling thief.
Yeah, Brady still needs his halfling thief.
You need a How do you not have a halfling thief? I think that's a requirement.
I comment on their page like almost every other week saying, "Hey guys, where's the halfling thief DLC?"
Where is he? I agree. I concur completely. Brady, what about yourself? What's one of the games you've been playing lately?
Well, to avoid overlap, because Adam and I play a lot of games together. I play Vermintide also, but I'll cover the other game we're playing a lot of, which is World of Warcraft, and it's kind of a touchy issue because I did not like World of Warcraft for a long time. Adam and some of our other friends.
Me and my friends have been playing since it came out, and Brady never played with it.
Yeah, because
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying I have a shorter attention span. Like I can sit and play a 6-hour solo board game, every night, but I can't sit for longer than like 45 minutes to an hour looking at a computer screen playing a game. I lose interest. Okay. Yeah. So, but the one thing they did that got me back into it is because now I feel like they took the lore and they focus more on being telling big epic stories and not just having these like little pop culture references and being silly in the lore, which is what I was used to. So I'm kind of getting deeper into the lore now, but they also have this expansion coming up in August, I think it is, right, Adam? August?
Yeah.
The Battle for Azeroth. And if you pre-order that, you get a level boost. So I had this level 20 gnome rogue that the furthest I got with him because I just never played. But when I pre-ordered, because everyone wanted to go play that, I got to boost my character up to the max level. So now I'm playing like all the in-game stuff, and that's where all the good stories are.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm just gonna run around as my gnome and stabbing people and having a lot of fun learning about the story and the lore. It's good.
Well, that's cool. It sounds like they figured out what was keeping certain people away, and they're just like, well, here, we'll fast forward you to the fun part.
Yeah, exactly.
The Legion expansion, which was the last expansion, really added a lot of cool story to the game.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'm going to try to avoid it, but I do appreciate a good story. One of the things, similar vein, so my daughter, one of her favorite games of all time is Skyrim.
Oh, nice.
So loves Skyrim. And she is very disappointed in the folks over there at Skyrim because they've made Bethesda, because they decided they made the same mistake that I feel like, although you can't really call it a mistake for Blizzard because they've made bajillions of dollars off World of Warcraft, but they stopped making the solo experiences and they went on to do World of Warcraft. And so now you have the same problem with Bethesda, where they really haven't done anything with Fallout except for rebranded 50,000 times. And they haven't done anything with Skyrim except made it available on every platform like the Switch, but and PSVR. But what they haven't done is made the next Elder Scrolls game. And so she wants, except for Elder Scrolls Online, which is really not, it for some reason is not Skyrim. Like it's really not that.
Yeah.
So it kind of bummed, BioWare did the same thing with Knights of the Old Republic. I'm kind of bummed that these companies that really know how to make a good solo RPG experience have gone after the dream of making lots of money like Blizzard with WoW, but they've stopped making their cool solo games. So,
I can't imagine why they just don't make like networked, like, you can play like multiplayer Skyrim, like not MMO, but just have like 4 or 5 people get together and play this
like Halo and Gears of War, just squad up and go kill dragons, right?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be great. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't do that either. And I feel like Skyrim, the next Elder Scroll game is like printing money. I mean, Skyrim does so well.
I would much
people together, make a world, go do it.
I would much prefer that because I don't play MMOs to play with thousands of people. I play with a few people, but I want that. I want that big world. I want to go explore a world and questing and adventuring. So like if Skyrim was multiplayer, I would be playing that all the time.
Yeah, if anything, playing an MMO is almost a negative thing for me because I don't like seeing thousands of heroes like running around doing all their things. I want to be kind of unique and special with my party of guys that I'm going out adventuring with. So I'd much prefer that as well. So get on that.
So you guys ready? I'm gonna destroy all your free time. I'm gonna tell you about a game. Given what you both just liked, have you guys played Divinity Original Sin or Divinity Original Sin 2?
Yes, I have it.
Yeah.
Okay. That game is amazing to me. Original Sin 2. So I missed Original Sin, but we got Original Sin 2 on Steam, and my daughters and I jumped into it. Actually, it happened because of PAX East last year. So we went to PAX East last year, and they were showing it, and it had just come out, and we were like, "Oh my God, how do we not know about this?" And what's amazing to me about this game, so it's a single or multiplayer experience, but it's only multiplayer in that each player has their own instance of the world and you can join their instance and play with them. So, but everything is voiced. Like everything is 100% voiced. The narrator, every time you click on a rock, it doesn't just say a text that the rock has nothing on it. You hear the narrator say, "There's nothing under this rock." Every time you click on a squirrel, if you speak with animals, the squirrel has like a 15-paragraph dialogue, completely narrated. The story is, I just find the story amazingly interesting. What's really cool too is there's all these major characters you can choose from. There's all these character archetypes, and if you choose one of the major archetypes, you can remake the character in your own image or however you want to do it, but it's still that same person, and they have a whole backstory that folds into the game that the main plot ties into, very much like if you're playing a DM of Dungeons & Dragons, the DM would fold in events back based on the backstory you wrote. It feels like that in there too, or you can just create characters out of whole cloth, completely original. So many different classes. You can play an undead monk. I mean, whatever. Have you guys really dug into this thing? I think it's amazing.
We've only probably played a total of maybe 10 to 20 hours of it. And I was blown away just from the amount of content from the introduction of the game. Like there's, like you said, there's just so much there. And also like in combat is so in depth where, Brady's character will shoot some flaming arrow and set the, battlefield on fire. But then my dwarf buddy wants to run up there, so I have to cast my ice spell to freeze it, and then he slips and falls down because the battlefield changes so much in the course of a battle. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, the combat mechanics are incredible, and I think the only thing that prevented me from getting really deep into it is I couldn't really make a character I liked. I think they need to have a few more races in there, preferably halflings or gnomes, obviously. But
there's a dwarf. There's a dwarf, but there's no gnomes. But
right.
One of the things you guys nailed it. It's actually quite hard.
It is
like the combat, but I like that. My daughters like it too. The combat, but you guys are on it. The combat is so good. Like you can do whatever you can dream up in combat will probably work. Mm-hmm. Like if I put ice on the ground and make the guy slip, can I slide him down this hill and off the cliff? Or if I zap that tree with a lightning bolt, it'll fall over and kill this guy. Like all that stuff just works. And it works in really interesting and compelling ways. And the combos you can pull off are really interesting too. And you really get into these tactical situations where you try to figure your way out. You can sneak by the guys, you can fight them. It really feels like you can do anything. And then you have what's interesting about it, there's also a dungeon master mode where you can actually run it as a live dungeon master and control the monsters against the part. Like you can so it's kind of like this, we talked about in the Lost Chapter about Baldur's Gate, right? This is the spiritual successor to those games done in a very modern way, I think. And I'm really impressed by it. I would, in fact, my oldest daughter, she's mad because we were all playing it together. And so we all agreed not to play it without each other. And what she's getting frustrated by is I don't have the time to play as much as she wants. And she's like, I'm just going to keep going in my story because I want to see that.
I think that's the biggest problem on our end is the fact that it's a very time intensive. And we usually like to play games with a couple of buddies of ours. And so we have to devote the amount of time together to play it. And so we usually play more drop in, drop out games. Like
that's the problem. It's super epic. You're almost better off playing it solo.
And a minor thing too is like gameplay wise is I had this problem with Neverwinter Nights as well. I can never get comfortable with those camera controls. Like there are certain isometric games I can dig, and like usually it doesn't prevent me from enjoying something. But I feel like games like that, they'd just be better if they were just kind of third person view, the action view. You still have the same mechanics and stuff, but I think the camera kind of just turns me off a bit.
Yeah, the isometric can be trouble. I agree with you there too. It can be a little tricky. And it's got those moments too where you get into the battle and it's kind of XCOM-y, which is good and bad. Like you get into the battle and it's really interesting, and then all of a sudden you make one mistake and your whole party's wiped.
Yes.
Yeah, it happened a lot.
When you said you could be super creative in combat, I think they designed the game around that, because if you just play straight, combat, it's really, really hard. Like you need to look for every advantage in the battlefield.
It is like it. So we take all that cool stuff I just said about RPGs and add the fact that it's also like XCOM. So if you like, because it's also super tactical. So if you like that, it's great. But if you're looking for a light RPG, it's not that. Yep. This is it's a really interesting offering. And if all that stuff sounds interesting to you and you got tons of time on your hand, check out Divinity Original Sin 2. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it is. I will say it is a fantastic game from what I've played of it. Just because I don't play it very often does not mean it's not fantastic.
Well, what I don't have as much time as I'd like. I mean, if I had found this game when I was a teenager, oh my god.
Oh yeah. Back when I played Neverwinter Nights all the time, this replaced that completely.
Oh yeah. So what else you guys playing, Adam? What's on your list?
I also, along with Vermintide, I also play a little bit of Blood Bowl 2 and
Blood Bowl, a classic.
And Total War also. That game is like Divinity.
Which Total War? Are you playing Warhammer Total War?
Yeah, Warhammer Total War 2.
Okay, yeah.
Because I could play as the High Elves, and I love those High Elves. But
is there a halfling army in that one? I don't think there is.
No, there's not.
That's why there are there are quests where you have to help halflings do things. So they appear in the game, but they don't actually have any graphics of them.
And can you get in and out of the steam tank?
I don't know. Can you, Adam?
I think if the steam tank blows up, your guys toast.
Yeah.
All right. I can.
Well, that game is extremely in depth. Really, it's cool if you're a Warhammer fan, because it's got all you can play as any army and all these units you can check out. So you can play out the battles and everything, and then they have the map campaign as well. It's just a huge game.
Yeah, nice, awesome. Those are good. We played when the Blood Bowl PC game came out, rebooted again because it's been out several times. A year ago, 2 years ago, we had a big league. All of us locally were playing, and every Thursday night we'd all log on and get our league games in, and then that was fun.
Oh yeah, Blood Bowl 2 it's a great game. It's pretty much a perfect translation from the tabletop game. So you can play, leagues by yourself against AI.
It really is. Yeah, cool. It's perfect. It's perfect trends. It's better than the board game because Blood Bowl games typically take a long time. So you can have a timer on it though to control that, but also you can play it, save it in the middle. So you have the flexibility on a PC that you really don't have in the real world. So.
Yes, and that's the reason why I never get to play Blood Bowl on the tabletop, because everybody plays the video game instead.
Plus, I like to paint models as much as the next guy, but here's one I don't have to paint the models for. So it's kind of cool. What about you, Brady? What else is on your list?
Well, you might have remembered when we met up at Dunkin' Donuts, I mentioned one of my favorite games ever was Blaster Master for the NES. Yeah. Well, fortunately, when the Switch got announced, or actually when it was about to be released, I wasn't going to get one. But then I saw a month before the release date, this company called Inti Creates surprise announced they're making a remake of Blaster Master called Blaster Master Zero.
Oh,
so it wasn't actually a sequel or a reboot. It was kind of just more like a successor. So I think it's had set the groundwork for future games, hopefully. But it's just it pretty much took the original Blaster Master game for the NES, which is still my favorite game of all time, and just made it modernized it while keeping all of the awesome charm that it had back then. So I was just blown away by how well that game was ported to the Switch. So it was the reason I bought the Switch, and I play it still. It's been I think it's been out for, how long has the Switch been out? A year and a half?
A little over a year.
Yeah, a little over a year.
Okay. So I've been playing it pretty much consistently for a full year. I beat it hundreds of times. I just keep playing it over and over again. So it's really well done. I highly suggest, if you like platformers, kind of like that Metroidvania they call it, where it's got those levels you have to go back and explore and find upgrades and stuff. So it's a fantastic port.
Nice. Now, do you guys here's a different, I'm just bouncing around my list here, but do you guys like couch co-op games?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I love that genre. I think the best part about a home console is playing on the couch with a friend, because it's something that's a little harder to do on the PC. Mm-hmm. And my favorite two right now, Cuphead. Have you guys played Cuphead?
I've heard that is a very frustratingly hard game.
But in a good way. The thing about this game that's interesting is, first of all, the graphic style off the charts amazing. They really nailed this sort of 20s or 30s sort of cartoon style. It's brilliantly done. It is viciously hard, but it's viciously hard in the way video games used to be viciously hard. and it makes it fun. And it's hard because what happens is the bad guys evolve as you go. So even though you have to take it takes 10 or 15 tries to get by a boss, right? Maybe more. But each time when you fight the boss evolves. So you start out and the boss is like spitting candy canes or whatever he's doing. And so you figure out after 2 tries how to dodge the candy canes properly. But then once you get past him dodging candy canes, all of a sudden he transforms and now he's making the floor slippery. And so now you're like, oh crap, how do I deal with that? And so you work your way through that part, and then he did something else uninspected. So it's kind of like the same fight over and over again, but it evolves. What's really cool is it's got 2-player couch co-op, and the game's difficulty doesn't seem to change when you add a second player. But the second player almost is sometimes distracting, but he actually gives you extra lives, and the second player can make a special move to save you when you die. So there's these little moments where you're kind of distracting each other, but also works together. And I don't know how to describe how hard this game is. It's so much fun, but it really is. And my oldest daughter and I are determined to solve this thing. And so typically what happens is we jump in, it's an hour before dinner, and we'll sit down and we'll play it for 20 or 30 minutes and have a blast and get like one boss. And then we'll go have dinner and forget about it. And then the next day we'll play another 20 or 30 minutes and get by another little thing. And it's in small doses like that. It's just wonderful. And the music's so great and the animation style is so good. It's really a wonderful little couch co-op. I highly recommend it.
That's cool. I was definitely tempted to check it out just from the art style alone. It looked cool.
And the other one I would recommend if you like couch co-op games is Overcooked. Have you guys seen Overcooked?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. That is the best. So is it 2 players on Switch or does it do 4 players on Switch?
I have it's up to 4.
So.
Yeah, because it is 4 on I think the other consoles. And yeah, I think it's even on Steam also. But man, this game, such a great game. It's got, I think I've talked about it on the show before, but this is a classic. My daughters love it. Every once in a while I have my niece and nephew over for sleepovers, or they'll go there and they play Overcooked after, everybody's done with all the big whatever they're doing. They sit down and they just play Overcooked for like an hour and a half or 2 hours straight. And it's such a great game. 4 players, you work together, but then every once in a while someone just does something really stupid and you get a great laugh out of it. It's just a wonderful little game.
Yeah, once you get to those spaceship stages, it gets really frustrating.
They're on the I don't know where that is. They're on the haunted house stages.
Oh yeah, with the light,
where the lights are going in and out, and they got flashlights, and then the rooms are moving around on them. It's hilarious.
The ones where you're on the moving trucks are also frustrating because you get a freshly cooked plate, and you run into the thing, and I fell off and lost it.
But the best part is as a parent, just sitting there watching it and listening to the dialogue.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Keep this up. Get it on a plate. I need a plate over here. Dirty dish. Get the dirty dish.
Wash the dishes.
Wash the dishes. Oh my god, the sink's moving. The sink's moving.
My 6-year-old daughter always begs to play that because she played it once and she had fun at the early stages. But I'm like, we cannot play this game. You're just gonna get so frustrated.
You'd be surprised though. Kids are I don't know. Maybe my kids are weird, but my kids were they just, when they find a problem, they just hammer at it till they solve it. In a way that gets boring for it. As an adult, I'm like, oh God, are you not bored of this yet? Can we go to something else? But I don't know. That's a really good one in our house. What else you guys playing? What else, Adam's on your list?
So for a long time now, we've pretty much our nightly gaming session with our friends. We play a game called Heroes of the Storm, which is Blizzard MOBA.
Yeah.
We used to play League of Legends and stuff, all kinds.
So why is the Blizzard MOBA your current favorite MOBA?
So first of all, it plays faster. You can play a match in 20 minutes probably. It's also has that effect that Blizzard has on their games where they make them just so easy to play. I don't know what Blizzard does when they make their games, but they're just so
I think the biggest thing is we used to play League of Legends, and it's a fine game. I loved that game, but when you play those matches, they're at least 45 minutes long, and there's all this upkeep to do, like buying all these different items to customize your guy in game. So it's a lot of kind of memorization about how you want to do your guy. But Here's the Storm, you hop in a match. It can be 20 to 30 minutes long, and then you just have all of the shopping you would have done is all rolled into talents, which you can learn ahead of time. So it's so much easier to play.
I think there are 2 big things that Blizzard did that made it appealing. Is they got rid of experience per player. So all the teams share XP. So you level up as a team. So there's no kill stealing. Like in League of Legends, if you're the attack damage carry, they call it, you need to get the kills. And if somebody kills a guy before you're killing them, they get mad at you. It's like, oh, you stole my kill. But it's a team game. You shouldn't be fighting over killing the enemy, So that was a big one. So Team XP is shared.
I think the other big thing was, just to jump in real quick, is the objectives on the battlefield.
Yeah, that was my other one.
Yeah, those are awesome because in League of Legends, you have a main objective to go destroy your opponent's crystal, which is still in Heroes of the Storm, but there's a lot more different stages that are different themed to the different, Blizzard games, but all of them have these like really unique objectives to do. So one of them might be this kind of Diablo themed one where there's these two like ancestral demon and angelic entities fighting each other, and you have to power them up and defeat the other ones. So you want to go defeat the other team's like big demigod guy while yours survives to march in on their tower and start banging on their
so the overall objective is still destroy the enemy fort base or whatever, but the secondary objectives help you do it easier.
Yeah, cool. That does sound pretty awesome. I do like, I never really got super into MOBAs. I did play Heroes of the Storm. And I thought it looked interesting because I'm into Diablo and StarCraft and all that. So I thought the idea of the mashups were cool, but I don't know. MOBAs don't suck me in as much as they probably should.
It is weird because this is my experience, and all my friends I've talked to are the same way, where they really did not like MOBAs when they first started playing them. Like they got into them because their friends suggested it, and they played a few games, and they didn't understand why people liked it. But once they crossed that threshold of, I don't know, like 5 or 6 games, all of a sudden they just got hooked on it, and they kept playing, and then all of a sudden they were playing every single day, and they loved it. And I don't know if it's because of the strategy and cooperation involved, where you want to see if you can do better the next time, or you want to it's that whole competitive nature, I guess. Why competitive?
My theory of why it's so addicting is it captures a lot of that RPG stuff where it's got this progression element, which you're always restarting every time you play a match. You always restart, and you have to level back up, but you get that little experience of progression in a shorter nugget with a lot more action going on. And I don't know, it's a good recipe. And again, I kind of echo what Adam said. I hated MOBAs so much when I first started playing. Like, why is everyone playing these? I hate this game. But then after a few, getting into a certain champion, I'm like, oh, I got this guy's combos now. This is great. It's a relaxing thing to do. And then, if they have time to kill in the evening when you're not playing with Warcraft.
Overwatch kind of gave me that. I know it's a different kind of game, but Overwatch was that with me. Like I did we got really into Overwatch for a while because it was the same sort of feeling. You jump in, you play a quick game, you jump out, right?
Yep.
And it just has that really great experience, just buttery smooth, and a really good time. So my last one, and then we'll talk about what we're looking forward to, though, is have you guys played, find people either love these games or they don't. Are you guys Assassin's Creed fans?
Honestly, I've never played one.
Really?
I've played a couple. I've enjoyed some of the action elements. I haven't played enough of them to kind of get into it. But one thing I was always confused about is the theme. Like it was like this weird kind of Matrixy going back in time thing. Like I never really got a hold of the theme. It didn't really seem that appealing to me because I prefer just a historical story, But it looks cool. Like I've always thought the games looked pretty neat. I just never got too deep into them.
So I really like most of them. So the first one I got into, and the biggest complaint in the very first Assassin's Creed a long time ago was that it just was so elements of the game were repetitive, but I didn't care. I just liked the way you could do the way you could approach missions in different ways, and the way you could use the crowd, or you could assassinate people, or you could just go right and fight your way through. Like it felt very empowering, And so when I've played most of the Assassin's Creed stories. Origins really blew me away. So this is the one that came out recently, set in Egypt. They just released a mode, a tourist mode, where they remove all combat gameplay, and because Egypt is so accurately historically represented in the game, you can just walk through Egypt and see all the elements of it. And you can introduce it in schools and really understand like what it must have felt like to be there. It's really amazing. The graphics are insane, but I think also Origins was really cool, and just the story itself was very compelling as well. But there's something really cathartic for me. I don't know what it is about the Assassin's Creed play style, where you there's this open world and you solve the area at a time, and you take it at your own pace, and you climb the towers to unlock the visibility, and you can, quietly take care of people. But there's still this RPG element where you're leveling up your gear and you're getting better, and you have different mounts. You can get on and off horses in this game, just throwing that there, and boats. So it's really interesting. But I do like, so the sci-fi element to it, because there is a sci-fi element. What's happening is, and from the very first game, and different editions of the game use this more and less. So some of the editions very rarely reference this. They all hint at it. But basically, the idea behind the game is that there's a technology has been invented that you basically can go into a VR situation, and you can, using your own DNA, you can reference the memories of any of your ancestors. So what's happening is there are two competing sort of societies in history in the Assassin's Creed universe. There's the Assassins and the Templars. So the Templars are this organization that want to bring world peace through tyranny, essentially, and the Assassins want ultimately freedom. So they're positioned as the good guys, although in various games they go back and forth on who's really the good guy. But basically, in different parts of the game, in modern times or the near future, they figured out a way to hack into DNA, and they are like kidnapping people who have assassins' memories. The current Templars are, and then they're forcing them into the VR to figure out what the assassins did with certain key elements of this what it turns out to be, not a really big spoiler here, but alien technology. So there's this additional element where there's this alien technology floating around through history that you're trying to find. And so by going back into your ancestors' memories, they can find it. And later installments of the game, there's these video game companies, and they're supposedly getting these memories out so people can relive the past just for fun, but it's really a front to do more research on the various histories and find out where all these different things are. Really, that's kind of an interesting idea, which is great. The movie sucked, by the way. Don't bother. But the games are great, and they just redid Assassin's Creed Rogue. My two favorites of the entire series are Black Flag, because that's the one where you get to be a pirate. So you actually are. So in addition to being able to run around fully as a dude that can fully assassinate, climb trees, swing ropes, fire a musket, all that stuff in full combat, and climb over buildings, going in and out of houses, the whole thing. But then you can board seamlessly with no load screens. You can board a boat, sail it away from the dock with a full crew, man the cannons, climb the mast, hoist the sails, swing across to another boat, board that boat, sink that boat, take it prisoner, whatever you want to do, like all of this.
Awesome.
It's insane. So if you like getting in and out of objects, Assassin's Creed.
Was there a game before this that was like the kind of either Civil War or Revolutionary War? Or is this the same game?
So there's been different. So the thing that's neat about it is what they generally do is each of the versions of the game, each of the games in the series goes back to different points in history. So the first one was sort of like Persia or ancient Egypt, but not Egypt like it is now. And then you had the origins with Egypt. They've done the Renaissance Italy was a really cool one. That was Assassin's Creed 2. They did the American Revolution. And then that was the one right where they hinted at the ship battles and had like 1 or 2 levels you could fight the ships. That was so well received that then they did Black Flag, which is really Pirates of the Caribbean, essentially.
What was that one called? The one right before Black Flag?
Assassin's Creed 3. It's 3 for sure. Let me see what it was. I'm gonna Google it right now.
That's the one I played, I think. So I was really into that part of history, so I wanted to go play that game just because.
That's generally considered the worst one, honestly.
Okay, so that's probably why I didn't dig it very much.
I liked it because I like that period of history too, but it was one of the few I didn't solve. The one that's really good was there was another one that was only mediocre, which was Revolutionary France. But that was interesting because it was a multiplayer co-op where 4 people could assassinate together. That was kind of neat. But it was full of bugs, so they kind of screwed it up. Then they did one after that. So there was Black Flag was in there, which is my considered the best. But they also did one that was really, really good, which was in Industrial Revolution London. And you went back and forth between a brother and sister team, and that was wonderful. Just really cool storytelling. So check out I would definitely recommend getting an Assassin's Creed game if you haven't done them, because they're really cool, especially again if you like transports. So check that out. But I really enjoyed Origins, and now they've redone Rogue, so I'm checking out Assassin's Creed Rogue as well. But I think I'm a sucker for open world games, so that's part of my.
Oh yeah. I have that problem too.
So what are you guys looking forward to? What's coming out in the near future we should be watching for?
Well, if you could tell from my previous games, I'm playing a lot. I do like Blizzard games, so I'm definitely interested to see what they're going to be announcing this year at BlizzCon.
What do you know? Blizzard's pretty close to the chest on this stuff. What do you think it's going to be?
So I have a feeling they've been hiring for Diablo people for a long time. They haven't done much Diablo, so I'm thinking they're going to do a new Diablo game or something big with Diablo. I love
Diablo. We played that thing from beginning to end a couple times. That was
I played Diablo 3 a ton. I loved it. Yeah. And I want a new game though. Like I don't know if they're going to take the adventure mode in Diablo 3.
Yes, yeah.
I think their next game is going to be more like that, like where it's more of randomly generated quests in more of an open world.
So a little more like maybe original Sin, where you're doing quests and stuff, but not quite that hard.
Yeah, I think they're going to get rid of the whole strict scripted campaign type thing.
Okay.
But either that or I don't know if there's going to be anything else, but I think Diablo is going to be the next thing. That's just my feeling.
I would love to see, they redid StarCraft not that long ago. I mean, it was a while ago now, but it seems like only yesterday because I got all 3 of them. That was great. But I would love to see them redo Warcraft. So orcs versus humans. I would love to see them redo that, especially since, that was inspired by GW, right? I mean, there was all kinds of subtle and not so subtle references to Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer. So I think it'd be really cool to see them redo Warcraft, but especially with the movie, I thought they might. Like with the movie coming out, I know it's World of Warcraft, but they could have done a Warcraft game. But of course,
I think they're going to do something else. I mean, they've been milking this World of Warcraft for what has it been, like 14 years now?
Yeah.
So,
they got Overwatch. I mean, the thing about Blizzard is you were right. Whatever they touch is gold. I mean, whatever their secret sauce to how they develop stuff, and they're completely different genres. Like they had never done a first-person shooter before, and they nailed Overwatch. Like, how do you do that?
And they also nailed the MOBA too. Like they just came out swinging. And I feel like they take a long time on their games. They keep them very secret, but it's worth it because they make really good games. So.
Yeah, whatever they do, they know the formula. Cool. Well, so let me know when you know what it is because I'm curious.
I'll keep my ears open.
What about you, Brady? What are you looking forward to?
I'm always looking out for news on this because it's been announced. It's officially happening. I don't know what the progress is, but I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the Resident Evil 2 remake. Because Resident Evil 2 was probably, I mean, while the first one's still one of my favorites in the series, I think Resident Evil 2 is probably the most iconic and it's like the most well received, critically and everything. But if they do a remake, I have a strong feeling they're going to make it co-op because they had a Resident Evil 5 and 6 both had really pretty decent co-op modes, even though the games themselves weren't that well received because they were more action oriented. Right. But I think they did a really cool because the 2 main characters in Resident Evil 2, Leon and Claire, are very, very iconic characters in the series. So I feel like making it an actual co-op game instead of just having this zapping system they did back when it first came out, where when you played Leon's campaign, you would affect Claire's campaign later, so you had to play them, alternate between the 2. But I'm hoping they make a smart move there and make it a co-op game because that would make it just so much better because that's probably one of the games Adam and I played the most throughout middle school. He would just play Leon's campaign. I'd play Claire's, but get to play that at the same time would be a dream.
That's awesome. So, okay, the one I'm looking forward to, and this is weird for me because I never really liked this IP, but so I'm relatively new to the PlayStation platform. Like I've been an Xbox and a Steam guy forever. And it was about a year ago for Christmas, I got the girls a PlayStation 4 because they were excited for 1 or 2 PlayStation games that are coming out. And so they got it, which of course meant Dad has it too. So I had to get some games. And so I played a lot of the games this year that were on there. But the game that's coming out this year, the new God of War game's coming out. Are you guys watching the press on this thing?
No, I know of God of War, but I haven't been keeping up with the news.
So when we got the PS4, I had to play all the great PS4 games that everybody raved about. So I played Drake's Fortune, which by the way is awesome. So I played through the Drake's Fortune series. I played through some other games that were great. There were classics on there. But then, and I tried God of War, and it was like a kind of a button masher action game, but really cool like graphics. But of course, the series has been around forever, so they're a little dated now. But it was still cool. So I like the idea because you're fighting gods and all that, and the scale of the game's crazy. But the reviews for the new God of War are really interesting because it's like the highest rated game like ever done for the PlayStation, like across the board. And what's interesting about it is like they really kind of the protagonist has grown up and now he's hanging out with his, I think, son or daughter, but he's got a child with him. And so it's a little more open worldy. It's a little more of there's more to the game. There's a little more RPG elements to it. The graphics look great. And I think they've just, I don't know, I think they've taken the franchise to a new level. And this one's got me really curious about it. And so I'm really interested to see, you got that kind of a budget AAA title. They're coming into it, but they're really taking a chance on doing something different. And all signs from the critics point to it paying off. So I love to find a new franchise that's kind of new to me and sort of experience it at this level. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but I'm really looking forward to trying that one out.
I mean, I was looking at pictures of it as you were talking, and the graphics look amazing. It looks like it's going more of the Skyrim route.
Well, it's the Norse mythos. So every game, Krios, I believe his name is the main protagonist there. He takes on different realms of gods. So like in the first one, he's fighting all the Greek gods, right? And I think by the end of each game, he kind of wipes them all out. Like that's sort of his thing. So now he's taking on the Norse gods, and I have no idea if he's going to wipe them all out or not, but we'll find out, I guess. But yeah, so it's gone very Skyrim-y because now he's in the Viking realms.
Is he a father teaching his son?
Yeah, it seems like so it's kind of like the next generation. So I don't know if this is the last game with Krios and then the next game will have his son, or if this is the last game ever. I don't know what they're thinking, but it looks pretty interesting. The graphics look great. The preview videos look awesome. And the reviews coming in now are pretty much like, this is just the definition of a great game kind of thing. It's like, oh my God. So
cool. I'll have to check it out.
It could be being overhyped, but I'm a sucker. I'll try anything once. So we'll see.
Very cool.
So good. Well, guys, this has been a fantastic conversation. Is there anything else we should mention before we let you go here and get back to your life?
I think we covered everything. Brady?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of chat about some of our favorite retro games and the Dunkin' Donuts meetup. So I think we covered most of what I want to chat about.
Sweet.
Russ, is there anything you want to talk about? God knows when you're going to have another chance.
No, I think we got all the current stuff, but I'm just excited, Craig, to have these guys on the show because now we're going to take a quick break. Hear from Total Fangirl and other folks. But when we get back,
yes,
these guys are also game designers, like board game designers, and we got to talk about what they've done recently.
The real deal.
What's coming out next? So let's get to that. Quick break. We'll be back to talk more in a bit.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, Total Fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy. And Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakelin and check out everything I'm up to over at NicoleWakelin.com. Our shout out is to all of our wonderful supporters over at Patreon. Head to patreon.com/the D6 Generation and you too can support the show. So this weekend, before my husband ran off to New York City for some work-related stuff on Sunday morning, we got up at the crack of dawn. I don't think I've ever actually gotten up early to go to a movie before. Normally I'm staying up late to go to a movie because it's some situation where, the only time we can get together is this one night and the only time they have tickets is 9:45, so good luck with that. And I try not to fall asleep in the movie because it doesn't matter how good a movie is. If I'm too comfy, I tend to fall asleep, especially if it's 9:45 at night. So this time, no, we had an early movie. Was at 9:30 was when the movie started. So I was wide awake. I actually set the alarm to get up and go to see the movie, and it was Avengers Infinity War. And there's no spoilers here. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I went to see it at the crack of dawn on Sunday morning opening weekend. And what was neat about it was that it wasn't... I thought it was going to be a really not crowded theater. I mean, we had a hard time getting seats or finding a day with their tickets, but I thought, well, who the heck is going to want to go see this movie at 9:30 on Sunday morning? So I didn't really expect it to be packed, and I didn't really expect it to be like an enthusiastic crowd. And to be fair, it's been a long time since I've gotten to see a movie when it opened because our schedules are so busy that we're often seeing things a week or two later. And the really diehard fans of whatever that movie might be, that genre, that franchise, whatever it is, are they've already come and gone. So they're still there, but it's not like a movie theater full of them. This movie was packed. Sunday morning. It's kind of cold here. It was drizzly. It was rainy. It was the perfect Sunday morning to just kind of stay in your jammies and drink coffee and read a book. Instead, we were all at the movie theater to see Avengers Infinity War, and it was really good. I really liked it. But what I liked most about it was how much fun it was to sit in a theater with all these people who were super, super excited to see this movie. Like the guy next to me is excited about it. We're looking at each other like, yeah, when things are happening, people are cheering, people are clapping, people are laughing. When things are going wrong, you hear half the theater doing this sort of like, oh, no, everyone's totally vested in what's happening with this film. So it was really, really fun. And I wasn't even sitting by Russ. I was on the end. So it was like Russ and the girls and me and then complete strangers. Me and the complete strangers were just laughing and having a great time. And I'd sort of forgotten the camaraderie of going to a movie theater. Because so often, like I said, I go later on and you're just there and there's lots of empty seats and there's no sense of excitement about it. But gosh, there really is something to going to see a big movie, a blockbuster movie like this when it first opens and still being in the theater when the people who are there are just super excited to be there, when they're not trying to be jaded and cool and like whatever. My buddy made me go see a superhero movie, so I don't really care, or whatever. My boyfriend made me go, or whatever. My girlfriend made me go, where they really are there because they want to see it. So if you haven't seen it yet and you're thinking of waiting, no, don't wait. Go see it as soon as you can, because I forgot how fun it can be to see a movie with people that are thrilled and excited about seeing it. And now I kind of want to make sure I go on opening weekend all the time.
Hey, welcome back. And now I want to talk about our friends at geeknationtours.com. Man, you want to go tour the world with people who have the exact same interest as all of you. That would be the folks at Geek Nation Tours. They are gamers like yourself going to really cool places like, I don't know, like checking out all the great places in Wales and the UK that Doctor Who is filmed, or maybe you're checking out cool battlefields in the south of the Civil War. Or maybe, Craig, maybe you want to go to the best 4 days in gaming, Craig.
Yeah, well,
maybe you want to go to the place where gamers go, everyone knows your name, and more gaming announcements happen than pretty much anywhere else. And that, of course, is Gen Con every August in Indianapolis, Indiana, and there's no better way to go there than with Geek Nation Tours, right?
Oh, absolutely. What you've got with Geek Nation Tours is basically your own private guide that's going to bring you through nerddom, or nerdery, as the case.
Yes, nerdery.
And
yes.
I'm kind of liking that term.
I think that's right.
And Terrace and his crew are going to make sure you don't miss whatever it is you want to go see. They're going to bring you to all of the extra peripheral events that most people miss out on or don't even know are happening. And basically, they're just going to give you the red carpet treatment across the board. Delicious dinners, events where they bring in all of the greatest luminaries of the gaming world. You're going to be playing like most of us poor SOBs have to claw through the vendor hall to get to those designers, but Terrace brings them to you, to your dinner table. It's great.
And if no luminaries are available, they go to people like us.
That's right. Occasionally they'll go
throw us in there.
Bottom of the bucket.
So what's great is my favorite time actually with the Geek Nation Tours folks at Gen Con is actually the opening night dinner. It happens the night before Gen Con starts, and Terrace is kind enough to invite us to that. And we get to go and say hi to many of the Geek Nation Tours visitors. And what's cool is then, of course, Terrace will have other folks from the gaming industry, game designers, game publishers, and it's just so much fun to meet them. And I feel like we have sort of like a special pass, Craig. It's really very kind of them to do that. So it's really a great way to get to know folks from the tour. And it's great because we meet up with them, say hello to them the very first day of Gen Con, and then you see them throughout the weekend. You say hi. It's like meeting an old friend, getting a game in, maybe hang out with them, see what they've been playing. It's just a lot of fun.
Yep, absolutely. It's got all kinds of stuff.
And so check it all out at geeknationtours.com.
What he said.
You're listening to the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. More fun than Merchant of Venus. Wait, what?
Who writes these?
Hey, welcome back. And since we have Adam and Brady on the show here, we're going to have to ask them a lot about their amazing games from Blacklist Games. But first, gentlemen, we always have to ask this question of anyone the first time they are in the third, or in this case, also fourth chair. And why don't we start with you, Adam, but then we'll go to Brady as well. Or maybe you guys can answer together since you grew up together. But are you now, or have you ever been gamers?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
And our origin stories will definitely be intertwined. I think we've always been into board gaming when we were kids, but I think the birth of our obsession with it came when Brady got a specific present for Christmas one year, and I'll let him explain that since it was his gift.
Yeah, I'm always annoyed that I can't remember exactly which year it was. I'm assuming it's the year that your request came out, which was like 94 or something, or whatever Christmas that was. We were youngsters, but I didn't even know what it was when I opened it. And I have fond memories of board games in general, because we'd have those storms where lights go out and we'd have candles, and my mom would break out like Monopoly or something. That was fun. Those would be like the most memorable experiences of my childhood because it was like kind of turn off the TV, turn off the video games, and do something different. So when I got that Hero Quest game, we were popping it out and had all these cool like treasure chests and all these like furniture pieces and stuff. And I was always like kind of into fantasy, just like as a passerby, but that game really got me like hooked. Like, what is this? Is there more stuff like this? So that was pretty much the spark that lit it. And since then, it's been off and on throughout our childhood. It was either sports or like, oh, let's get into Warhammer, or like, let's play heavy metal music. Let's do something else.
Well, luckily, our mom was cool enough to actually play as Zargon.
Yeah,
we played Hero Quest, and so I still remember when I was playing the elf and one of the monsters killed my elf, and I was like, Mom, you killed my elf. And I just remember the very specific feeling of like, oh, I was so into that character, and he died from some goblin. But we always went back to that game, with our friends and stuff. And one summer we were kind of, looking for something to do, and we broke out Hero Quest, and we realized we played all the quests.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought to ourselves, let's just go to the game store. I know this is out of print, but maybe they have some old stuff lying around. So we went to the game store and we saw all these Warhammer miniatures on the wall. We're like, wow, this looks like Hero Quest sort of. And so we started we really got into Warhammer there and started collecting and painting miniatures, and that kind of opened the door to a whole new hobby for us.
That's awesome. So the original Hero Quest with the Milton Bradley logo on it, that came out in 89.
89. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more than earlier than I thought.
So if you got it when it first came out, then yeah, that's awesome. I have very fond memories of that game. That's a fantastic title. Now, so was that board game, other similar board games? Did you get into other genres of gaming as well, or did you pretty much stick with board games?
Going back to the game store so often, looking for new Warhammer figures. Eventually, I made my way back to the D&D section, and I ended up buying a D&D player's handbook. And that kind of opened the door to role-playing games, which we didn't know anything about.
Yeah, the weird thing about actual like board games, like we never really. I think after Hero Quest, it was actually not until Descent, the first edition Descent, which was a weird way we stumbled upon it because we didn't really have any board games on the shelves at our apartment. We were like in our late teens, early 20s or something at the time, and we were playing in this fantasy metal band. So we were into fantasy, but not so much into like the gaming stuff. But we had our other guitar player and both our guitar players were actually interested in it as well. So after practice, we'd go back to our apartment, we'd play Descent games, and that was like the first, like that was pretty much it for us. We were done after that. Like, okay, we're gamers now. This is pretty much all we're gonna do.
And touching on that Descent thing, we'll come back to when we start talking to our professional gaming career.
Yeah. Well, I still have super fond memories of the original Descent and all the Descents. I mean, that was definitely a big game for me too. So how did that go? So how did you move from gamers into trying to get involved in the industry? I mean, how did that was that something you always dreamed about doing? Was it happenstance? How did that happen?
That was actually kind of the gateway, I think, because we were after high school, we took a few years off, and we were actually in a band. Adam was a bass player, and I'm a drummer, and we did a lot of just playing with other random heavy metal bands. But something about European heavy metal really spoke to me, and a lot of that is centered around fantasy stuff. Like they have fantasy themes and they have these concept albums about fantasy stories. So as I got more into that type of music, and I wanted to start a band like that, I was like, well, I got to start writing this kind of stuff too, because I want to have these cool concepts. And I was always into like songwriting and like the lyrics side of things and just the concepts. So I slowly got into writing through that. And that's how I wanted to be. I went back to school to be a novelist. I went as a creative writer. I got my bachelor's degree from Purdue, but going back to school, like that's what led me to gaming also, because the deeper I got into like wanting to write fantasy, I started to want to play more games and get more into that. And by the time I graduated, Adam was working at a game company already, a puzzle company. So he was already kind of messing around with games. And go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say while this is kind of going to be parallel, so we'll have to interject each other. But while we were in school, Brady got back into Purdue, and I decided to go join him, so I went to Purdue as well. And while I was going to school, I was working at a puzzle and game company in town, and I was just working there as like an intern graphic designer, sort of. And at one point, there was a need for a game design, and I was working there with a fellow named Tom Mason, who I think you guys know.
Yes.
Yeah. So him and I took it upon ourselves to design this game. So we designed a game for Avatar, the movie. and that's actually my first real official game design was this board game that we put together.
Cool.
Yeah, and that kind of opened the door to an opportunity that also connected to Brady's.
While he was doing that, I was kind of jealous because I wasn't getting actually paid for stuff, I was just doing stuff for fun. So by the time I was like, getting really deep into writing a novel, I was trying to get my professional portfolio ready because I graduated a year ahead of Adam. So I was looking for work, and it was a weird timing situation where FFG had a new post on their career site, because I always check that kind of stuff, and they were looking for freelance writers. And I was like, oh, perfect. This is perfect, So I just reached out randomly. And to my shocking surprise, Jay Little, you guys familiar with Jay Little?
Yeah.
He was working there as the managing RPG editor at the time. He responded right away and said, hey, I got a project. I saw your interests and stuff. This might appeal to you. Let's chat. And I found out it was the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay edition they were doing. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, I have to write for this. So I ended up doing a couple books for them just as a freelancer. And that led me to just kind of keep looking for work with FFG, and they posted for a marketing content developer, which is essentially a copywriter for their marketing team. I was like, I can do that. And after I blew my first interview, because I made some comment about, I just want to get my foot in the door because I want to design games, and like I wasn't even thinking when I said it.
That's a big note.
Yeah,
big note.
Some advice to
whatsoever.
Right. So advice to new people: just apply for the jobs that you want. But yeah, I managed to get in after my next interview, and I spent a year in marketing. But then Adam was actually looking for a job right when I started.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Brady was working in marketing, and when I was graduating a year behind him because he got a head start on me. And then as I was graduating, there was a post for a game producer at FFG, and that role was more of a project manager to help get games produced. So it wasn't necessarily game design, but I thought it sounded cool. So I applied for that. And again, I was up against a few guys who were really qualified for that role, and I was in the top 3, they told me, but I didn't get it. I was really bummed. But then like a month later, someone contacted me saying that a position opened up and they wanted to hire me. So I got a job, and I moved up to Minnesota to be working at FFG with Brady. And I worked there for a while. For a few months, I was working on various projects. And then I saw that they were doing Descent 2nd Edition coming up.
Yeah.
And so I told my manager, I have to work on this game because Descent is the reason I know about your company. That's why I'm working here. And I'd love to be the producer on this game. And so she said, sure, we'll make that happen.
Wow.
But then when time came to work on it, there was no designer. Nobody had any availability to work on it. And so I was working as a producer, just trying to figure some things out. And then I just slowly started designing the game because I was like, I'll do this myself. And so I became the game designer. So I was very lucky that happened because I think that Descent kind of really got my name out there as a game designer in the industry. But also working on that, they were very impressed with how I was handling our projects. So I got promoted to managing game designer there. I kept getting more and more away from actually designing games. They kept wanting to move me more up in management.
Right.
And eventually I just realized, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a manager. Right. I want to design games. So as my daughter was born, and we kind of want to move back to Indiana to be closer to family, it kind of just made this tough decision to leave FFG. And so I moved back to Indiana, and then I'll let Brady chime in with how he can catch up with it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, during that time, I just, like I said, I worked about a year in marketing. So Adam started like just a few months after I did, and he was doing like all this awesome stuff while I was just writing about the awesome stuff. And after about a year, I just kept making these moves. I was making it clear I wanted to be moved over to the R&D section, and they finally saw that. And since I was, doing my job fairly well as a marketer, they were like, "Well, we'll give you a shot at this also." So I moved over as a content developer, and I worked on like Mansions of Madness. I worked on Gears of War, the Rune Wars, and then also Descent. I helped with the expansions for Descent. So I did that for like a few more months, but I had a kid a year before Adam, and I owned a house up there. Adam lived in our basement. So
yes,
so
he loves to flaunt that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the point being, I had bills adding up, and I ended up taking a corporate job that offered me twice what I was making at FFG, so I pretty much had to take that. And I was thinking along the same lines as Adam. It's like I kind of want to do this on my own anyway, so I always had the plan that I would get a day job, quote unquote, and then make games on the side. So that kind of led us to where we are now. We both moved back to Indiana, which we're really happy living around here. We like the area, and now we get.
I think though the FFG has been very good to us in our career. But I think one of the big steps is when we moved back, I stayed in contact with FFG, with the CEO Christian Peterson, and we sent him an email pitching this idea for a project because they had this. Did you ever see their Blood Bowl team manager game?
Yes, it was fun.
Yeah, so we always had this idea of like we want to do a Warhammer Quest card game for you guys, right. And nobody would listen to us. Like, no, like whatever. But like we pitched it to Christian via email saying, we'd love to do this, and they said, well, if we did that, we would just probably do it in Descent, our own setting of, they kind of gave us the runaround. And then like a month later, he emailed us back saying, you know what, I want to do this, and so we got the chance to make the Warhammer Quest adventure card game, right. Which was our first big co-design. As freelancers, and that kind of opened the door to a lot more opportunities for us.
That's fantastic. So that's a really amazing story, and you've worked in some of my favorite games. That's awesome. Yep. So that was really a wonderful opportunity. Then it sounds like you did a really good job of kind of cutting your teeth and learning the ropes with a established gaming company.
Awesome opportunities.
Yeah, and then you came back out, and you had to do what was right for your families, but then you were able to do side freelance work, and it was great that you also departed Fantasy Flight but kept that relationship strong.
Yeah. We still have a good relationship. We still do freelance work for them, and we enjoy.
We may have a game being announced by them soon. So.
Oh, cool! Not that you can name it, but that's
right. Yeah,
we'll keep an eye out for that. That's awesome. So, what happened to kind of get you guys? I mean, you obviously wanted to go freelance. You obviously want to do this yourself. Did you decide to look for other publishers? Did you decide to go right to Kickstarter? I mean, what were you thinking?
So at first, I thought our only opportunity was our previous relationships with FFG. That was our first opportunity or first possibility, we thought. So that kind of was our focus when we left. We were like, we can maybe try to get our foot in the door with this freelance thing by working with this publisher that we actually worked for, and they know what we can do. They have faith in us. So that was kind of our first shot. And then after that, we've never been in a situation where we've been looking for work. It seems like things kind of pop up as we become free. We try to limit how many projects we're working on at once because we have day jobs and families and stuff. So we try to focus on one at a time.
It's kind of like a good problem to have. But like, for example, when we did the Warhammer Quest, like literally right when we were sending off emails to finish off the final files of that game, like our final contributions to it, Cryptozoic reached out to us asking if we wanted to do the Walking Dead No Sanctuary game. So we're like, wow, good timing. And right since then, it's been like nonstop. Every time we wrap something up, it seems like the time works out perfectly where we either get 2 offers or we get 1 round. But now it's becoming once we have like 2 or 3, we have to kind of choose between, which is like I said, a good problem to have. But it's like we want to do all these different games, but we just don't have the time right now.
It's hard to say no to exciting projects, even if they won't work in your timeline.
Right.
But yeah, like Brady said, when Walking Dead wrapped up, that's when we were contacted by Blacklist, which was a new publisher, and they had this idea for a game that they wanted to do, and they wanted to work with us, and we thought it sounded cool, and it was kind of exciting to take a chance with a new publisher.
Right.
That is also kind of scary, because it's a lot of work to design a game. So we decided the deal sounded good, and we knew the guys pretty, fairly well. So we said, okay, we'll do this, and we did that Kickstarter, and we were still kind of hesitant to see how it would turn out because they were a new publisher. Like, yes, they're nice guys, and yes, they have good vision, but can they put together a good product? And then when Street Masters, when we got the early copy of it, it blew us away. Like, it is a very, very high quality game, and we're very proud of it. It's really good, and I'm very excited for the backers from the Kickstarter to get their hands on it.
I love the art on that game and the premise, everything about it. When they approach you guys in a game like that, how much of the vision is already locked down, and how much room do you guys have to maneuver? Or is it do you have a lot of latitude, limited? They're like, we got the miniatures done, everything's done, we just need rules. I mean, how does it kind of work?
Well, in our case, we've usually been in a situation where people come to us when they just either have an IP or like they have a rough concept of something they foresee, and usually it's for Kickstarter or some big box, thematic game. For Blacklist specifically, the joy it's been working with them and why we keep coming back, we have like 3 or 4 projects lined up with them, is because they do have a concept, usually like a theme of or some vision of I want a video game fighting game or a cop game, but they let us do whatever we want with that. So when they approached us with Street Masters, their concept was we want to have a game that's kind of like a Street Fighter game, but like co-op, and there's like Dynasty Warriors where it's tons of guys coming at you.
Right.
I'm like, I got it, guys. We can take care of that.
That's awesome.
So they have some ideas, but they give us a lot of leniency to do whatever we want with it. So
that's awesome. What's your favorite mechanic in Street Masters?
I'm a sucker. Like the big inspiration behind that for me was I loved Sentinels of the Multiverse, like the concept of that game, like the product model. I don't love the there's a few problems I have with it. Like it can be a little clunky, and there's a lot of upkeep that's kind of awkward sometimes, and it doesn't scale well per player. Right. It does a little bit, but it's not a very easy game to solo or anything. Right. So, but I love the fixed deck aspect. I love the modularity of I'm going to play this hero and this hero versus this bad guy on this stage. So that's pretty much exactly what Street Masters is. You pick a fighter deck, you pick a boss deck with his enemies, and you pick a stage you want to fight at. But the stages are probably my favorite mechanic in that game, aside from the fixed decks, because the stages are pretty much like characters in their own. They have this cool map tile with these objectives out there, and the decks, the stage decks are all different. And the objectives are always different. They're either making the bad guys go after some bombs to set off, and if all the bombs go off, you lose. So they have a ton of different variety in there, and they were just a blast to design. They're by far probably the proudest I've been with a final design. That was those stage decks.
That's awesome.
I think my favorite mechanic is nothing, revolutionary or anything like that. I just love exploding dice.
I like exploding dice too. There's something about that you just keep rolling and rolling and rolling.
Yes, it's so satisfying. If
it really is.
Success. Oh, crit.
Right, exactly. You want those criticals to matter. Yeah, exactly.
We were showing Tom Mason the game the other day when he was in town, and I rolled I think it was 8 crits at him. I've never rolled that many. It was like one at a time. I go crit. So
it was a 1-die attack. We're always going to do 1 damage. You end up doing like 9 damage.
Well, it's nice because then any character has a chance against anybody.
Right,
exactly.
Right, it's a cool mechanic. That's awesome. That's fantastic. So
that was a big success.
Yeah, it was a huge success. What do you like as you do these? Like, obviously, you learn about stuff. What's been sort of? I know you got another one coming. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's been sort of? Is there a rule of thumb or sort of a foundational sort of thing you think about when you design all games now that you're kind of like every game you've designed, you've kind of learned this one thing, and it's kind of like your golden rule?
Yeah, one of the biggest thing I've learned, especially working with Brady, is keep things as simple as possible. If you have an idea for a game, focus on that one thing you want to do with it, and try to build the game around that one concept. I think we learned from Walking Dead. Walking Dead was a cool game, but Brady wanted to throw a lot of things in it, and there's a lot of cool concepts, but it's almost overwhelming. Like thinking about trying to design around every single step. So like usually when we approach projects, Brady hits the ground running, and he's kind of like the workhorse. He'll do so much work up front to get something to the table, which is an absolute necessity when you're designing a game. Like if you can't get something to the table, you're just sitting there staring at an idea on a screen for months. So once you get something to the table and have something to actually try and see how it fails, that's the biggest step.
I'm really good at failing. I am really that's quality as a designer. I don't care how bad I fail.
But if it wasn't for Brady, I would be sitting there staring at my ideas for months. Like I wouldn't get things done. So, but I guess I work well with Brady because I can kind of peel away what he's going for and try to get to the core of this concept of this is how we should focus. This is what we should focus on for this game.
Right.
So keeping it simple is probably the biggest thing I've learned.
And kind of going on the heels of that is I have a similar thought process. I can't always act on it because I just dump my ideas onto the board and go, but I try really hard to to keep things as simple as possible. But another thing too is this is me personally. I try not to worry about like innovating too much or worrying about what other people have done in games. I like to focus on what the game you're working on needs and what makes it fun. Even if it's something that you think has like been done or repetitive or whatever, if it's fun, there's something there. So explore that and focus on the player experience. Which everyone always says that, but if you really drill down and see what the players are doing on their turns and focus on that, the design around that, that's what's going to get you having a fun experience when you play games. So we've had so many games we've designed where playtesting is not fun, and it's like, well, I think we might have a problem with this game because I'm not having fun playing it. It's
right.
It kind of blew my mind when we were designing a game that was fun to playtest. It's like, wow, this is what we should be doing, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's awesome. So what's your next new project?
So to follow up on Street Masters, we have a new Kickstarter that I'm not sure when this show goes live, but the Kickstarter should be live May 1st.
And it'll be right about this show will be live just before then. So you'll be
sweet.
By the time you hear this, it'll be just days away, moments away.
That's right.
Yes. Blacklist.
Yeah.
Blacklist wanted to wait until as many people had their hands on Street Masters as possible because Blacklist knows they're a new publisher. Right. They know that they need to prove themselves and they want backers' confidence.
That's smart. You don't want people waiting for their first Kickstarter. Oh, they're doing a new one. They haven't finished their last one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we've been ready to launch this Kickstarter for probably about a month now. Like we had a head start on it, and Brady and I have been super excited about the theme. It's Brook City is the name of the Kickstarter, and it's a action cop movie themed board
Russ,
game.
Guess what? I'm looking at the Kickstarter page. Guess what they have?
What
vehicles you can get in and out of?
Is there a short cop who likes to eat?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, there's no hobbits.
There's a criminal that likes to eat. There's a criminal that looks a lot like Guy Fieri, but
okay, well, all right.
Yes, they're
oh yeah, he's Gus Ferguson. I think he's Guy Fieri. I see what you did there.
This game will definitely have some references people will notice, especially if they like action movies from the 80s and 90s.
Right. Or celebrity chefs.
Or celebrity chefs.
Right. Yeah, it's mostly like we were kind of going for not just like a buddy cop. It started off as a buddy cop concept, but we kind of moved it more toward not focusing on this buddy cop thing because that kind of makes people think there's a buddy cop mechanic in the game or something. And we do have stuff like that in this game, but it's more just about like if you think of Grand Theft Auto, the video game series, but flip it where instead of playing criminals or playing as cops, busting up the criminals. Right. That's kind of the vibe we're going for. So it's kind of like reflected in the art style too. It has that GTA kind of video game vibe.
Right.
And if you scroll down, Craig, if you look down the optional buys section, you might see a couple familiar faces for the cops in that box in the Delta Keys expansion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's good stuff in here.
Yeah, Blacklist makes sure that we appear in every one of our games that we do with
Yeah, in Street Masters there was an expansion called the Twin Tiger expansion, which is a total ripoff of Double Dragon. And Brady and I are in there as characters called Axel and Reese Murdoch. And we also make an appearance in Brook City as well.
And you'll see your Axel and Reese cards in Brook City. Yeah.
This was totally unplanned, but the backstory in Street Masters was Axel and Reese used to be cops. They got framed, just like Tango and Cash, if you remember that movie. Yes, it was pretty much as a spinoff of that. So like that wasn't even this game wasn't even planned at the time. But since we had that little mention in Twin Tiger, I'm like, we'll just throw Axel and Reese. We'll do a whole cop themed game and have them. This is their backstory as cops now.
Yeah, awesome. And you can tell Axel is based off of Sylvester Stallone as Tango, and then Reese is based off of Kurt Russell, Cash.
Wearing the mullet.
So is this a co-op or is it
one party in the back?
Yeah, mechanically, it borrows a lot from Street Masters. It's using a system we're kind of branding as the modular deck system, which is how I explained earlier, where you have these fixed decks that you can socket in and out. So everything in the game, like just what's in the base game, plus any expansions, plus any like stretch goals, will mostly be decks that you can socket in and out and have different mechanics. So it adds a ton of design space and modularity, and it's also if you play Street Masters, you'll see a lot of familiarity with the dice, how encountering cards works. But this is not a fighting game. This is more of kind of an adventure game where it took a lot more cues from like Arkham Horror or Eldritch Horror, where you're kind of going around this city map and you're solving these mysteries, these cases. So you roll dice to do stat checks essentially to try to bust up these criminals. So it plays very fluidly, but a lot of the narrative and everything comes to those decks because the case decks all have different crimes going on, different stories to tell and everything.
To take a step back, every cop has a deck of cards. So if when you play the game, each player picks a cop, they take their deck. Then you choose a criminal to play against, and the criminal has a deck, and you pick a case to play against, and the case has a deck. Cool. And the case is kind of your win condition. Right. You need to get through the case to win. And the criminal is your lose condition. If you don't keep the criminal under control, you'll lose, or you'll get fired. If a cop gets fired, you lose.
I love the art style. I love the concept. There's a lot going on here. It's really super cool.
You can see inside the buildings, and
yeah,
we got Henning Ludvigsen to do the board art. He actually did the tile art in Descent Second Edition. Oh. So I remember working with him when I was at FFG, and I was like, we got to get this guy. He does the best map art.
It looks great.
And there's a river, so you can have a boat.
Yeah.
Yes, there are boats in the game.
Yeah, the Delta Keys expansion adds a sideboard, an island sideboard, so you have to take the river to get to the islands and solve cases.
I feel like you need helicopters to really have the Grand Theft Auto thing.
Oh yeah, there's helicopters. Not sculpts, but because we didn't have like a reason to have the sculpts in there, but there are cards, helicopter ride.
Yeah, there's one blowing up on the box of the Delta Key.
Right. You get the wrecked.
It is
one
funny. The cars cannot enter locations, but there is like a special vehicle, like the moped. They can drive through buildings. So it's kind of fun.
It's called the Dingle Hipper.
The Dingle Hipper. Now with the Delta Keys here, do you have like Crockett and Tubbs or anything going on here? I don't see the names don't seem to imply
like a missed trick right there.
Yeah, we have a
you need
better balance, I think, in this one.
You need room.
What's that?
You need room to expand. That's
exactly. Yeah, stretch goals are where it's at.
Yeah, we do have a lot of stretch goals playing with this one, and we hope we can hit them all because there's some fun stuff.
Oh, I bet.
Very cool. This looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait to check this out. This looks really, really cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy and obviously very productive schedule to join us.
Thank you for having us. This has been fun. This has been a blast.
It's been a lot of fun. Now, if folks want to learn more about anything you're doing with Blacklist or all your various projects, like where do they go to learn more about this particular game, Brook City? But then also, where do they go to just keep track of all the various shenanigans you guys are up to?
So the best place to keep track of us through Blacklist. Blacklist has a Facebook page, which is slowly becoming more and more active as we're building up to the Kickstarter. But that's going to be kind of the go-to place. We're going to be posting updates about the outside of the Kickstarter. When the Kickstarter launches, we'll be in there in the comments section, answering questions, posting updates, staying as active as possible.
Yeah, that's facebook.com/Blacklist Games LLC, all one word, just in case you need to type it in.
Okay. Yeah, or just search Blacklist Games.
Yeah, just search for it. Yeah, we also have some presence on like Twitter. I'm Brady J Sadler on Twitter, and I think Adam B Sadler, right?
Yeah, Adam B. Sadler.
Yeah. So we don't tweet too much, but we're on there to respond to things, and we get tagged and stuff. From
I'll be tweeting during this Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thanks again. This has been a blast as always. Great to hear how you got your start, and thanks for all your work on those classic games because they are some of my absolute favorites from Fantasy Flight. So awesome for that, and I'm really looking forward to checking out Brook City.
Awesome. Thanks again for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. This Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by all of our friends at Patreon. These are the folks who have stepped up over the years and have taken part in the show to become part of the show and help us keep doing this day in, day out, week after week, month after month for such a long time. Today, I'd like to thank Merely Rachel, Christopher Rakowski, Adam Reeve, Richard Reed, Matt Rendar, Luke Ritalik, and Frank Reynolds, and Adam Richards, and Tim Reinhart. Thank you, lady and gentlemen, and thank all of you who have helped over the years keep the show running for so long. Did you ever notice how it's very hard for you to really understand what you're good at and what you're not good at until somebody else helps you out by looking at you and looking at what you did and giving you a little feedback? For instance, I used to think I was really good at making up scenarios and different games like that, and used to do it, and all my friends would just run along and be like, yeah, cool, we'll do Craig's scenario. And eventually it was brought to my attention by someone of our mutual acquaintance that I have a tendency to overcomplicate things and make them very difficult to understand for other people. So I do it from the point of view of I'm going to be running this thing and I don't have to worry about communicating it to other people. But then how do you prove that it's fair? And if you're not around for 1 week, how are people going to do it without you? And that's kind of where I fall down. I overcomplicate things. I make it all like super, super cool and gritty and to me, and what it ends up being is just really complicated. And so my concepts then generally need to be sort of narrowed down. And over the years, that's kind of, we're talking like 20 years ago, actually 25 years ago, when I used to do, even further than that, like 27, 28 years ago, when I used to do really elaborate missions for 40K, when I used to own all the models. I'm sensing a pattern here. This is how I got all my friends, including Russ, into 40K, first with Epic, and then with 40K, by buying all the armies and then painting them so that everybody would have cool models to, wow, interesting. I never put that all together. But anyway, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? I feel like I've been doing this for 88 years. Anyway, or is it 77 years? 987. Anyway, yeah, so I used to come up with these really elaborate missions and they were all asymmetrical back before I knew what the word asymmetrical even meant. And we were just running around and everybody would have these missions and they would take all weekend to play. But at the same time, if I wasn't around, there's really no way anybody would have understood any of my notes and stuff like that. So nowadays I try to keep things more focused. That's when Russ and I did we did a project. I don't know, was the podcast just starting when I did this, or was it even before the podcast, where I made a bunch of cards with missions on it? I think it was right at the beginning of the podcast. I did a bunch of I made a deck of cards with 40K missions on them, and I made it so I had to render it down to like something that made sense on a card, and that helped. And then more recently, over the last few years, what I've taken to doing is my little cheat sheets, my little player aids that I do usually for miniatures games. In fact, I don't know why I said usually. I don't think I've ever done anything for any other, but I did one for Frostgrave, and I've done them for most of the Spartan games over time. And I was doing the one for Drop Fleet that Russ and I were talking about at the beginning of the show, where you're flipping through that rule book and you're constantly looking for stuff, and it's very, very frustrating. What resource they do have is cool because it tells you page numbers and everything, so you're flipping to the page numbers and stuff, but there's still a bunch of stuff that's not there. And so I was making my little cheat sheet, and then I realized, wow, it's like the natural offshoot of my need to now like simplify things and narrow things down and get to the most important core concepts, which is also something I do as a teacher, which is another little connection that I just made right now. You've just witnessed that right now. And so as I'm looking at my Drop Fleet Commander, basically what I do is I first go get a cool logo for the game, and I put that at the very top, and I'm not trying to steal anybody's trademark or anything. I'm not making any money off this stuff. Actually, I don't even disseminate it, but it looks cool to me, and it kind of gives me a little incentive because I want to make it look as cool as the logo at the top. And luckily, the Drop Fleet Commander logo goes perfectly right across the top of a regular piece of paper on Microsoft Word. if you use narrow margins. And then I have to start figuring out. And now sometimes what I'll try to do is I'll go to the rule book and I'll just say, okay, let's how the rule book's laid out, and I'll do it exactly like that. And that's what I did with I did that with Frostgrave, and I think I did that with Blood and Plunder. And the problem there is you end up with way more information because you don't really need that kind of information. Like, if you're playing a game over and over again, you know which dice to roll to see whether you hit or not. And you know the very, very, very basic mechanics of the game. I mean, the Blood and Plunder one, now that I think of it, because it gets all complicated because you've got ships and you've got buildings and you've got all this other stuff, is actually 2 pages long. It's the only one that I've ever done that was 2 full pages, both sides of them long. And my goal is to always get all of the necessary information to play the game on one side of the paper, and on the back side of the paper have like reference that you might need once in a while. So for instance, the Drop Fleet one, and Russ hasn't gone through it yet, so I don't know. I might have to add a bunch of stuff, but I have all the charts you need. It's a very chart-heavy game. There's and not necessarily. I mean, actually, a lot of these aren't charts. They're just like the ground assets, like the infantry and the armor and the defensive batteries you can have, or the strike craft that every race has a difference. It has slightly different stats. The bombers, the torpedoes, the orders. Those aren't really charts. The charts kind of come in with the crippling damage. Once you're reduced to 50% or less of your initial hull points, you got to roll D6 to find out what location has been damaged, and then you roll another D6 on that location to find out what happened. And then you can roll another D6 to try to fix the damage at the end of each turn. And if you blow up, you roll another D6, and there's another chart for what happens when your ship blows up. And so actually, it's not as many charts as it looked. The cheat sheet makes it look like a lot more, because a lot of the information is presented in a graphical format from the rule book, which I really liked. So I just kind of, in Excel, I just sort of tried to recreate those. And I once I make one of these, it's very strange. I generally don't need it once I've made it because it all gets into my head. But at the same time, I don't want to play a game without it once I've got it, because I know where everything is, if that makes sense. So if I do need to look something up, I know what it is. And on the back of this one, I've only used about 2/3 of the back, and that's all the ship special rules and all the weapon system special rules and a couple other things that we don't need, but maybe someday we might, because none of us are using torpedoes now or anything like that. And so, so now I've just been thinking, like, I have a lot of these things, and I don't know what to do with them now, but I love them and I like them, and I don't know if they're any good or not, but. Anyway, that's what I was thinking today when I sat down, because literally in 10 hours I'm leaving for Disney World. So this is my last gaming thought, probably for a week. Anyway, I'm thinking of you guys. That's all I've got to say about this tonight. So thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
What are you, like 60 years old, you guys? You got under your belts, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel I feel like if I retired now, I'm done. I've done everything I want to do. So
I think it's time for you to become a greeter at Walmart. Really.
You're ready for the final stage, right? I want to retire as a monorail driver in Disney World. That's just what.
That'd be great.
I feel like that's where you go to die, right? You know, so.
Heck, anything at Disney World.
Right, exactly.
I think the ironic thing is I used to flip burgers I've had so many odd jobs in restaurants, but I feel like now I just want to work in a restaurant. Now it's like I want to go back.
Yeah, in high school I used to be the donut maker. So trying to make the donuts in those commercials. I worked at Mr. Donut, which has now been consumed by Dunkin' Donuts, but I used to work this 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift.
Oh, nice.
Donuts.
Oh, wow. That would be fun.
Yeah, it's fun for the first, week.
Yeah, I worked
after the fourth or fifth week. Yeah, and if you're paying your way through college, then you also have a day job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I scrubbed toilets third shift to get into college. I had horrible grades and I had no money, so I was like, I'm going to go to Purdue and get a job as a janitor, and then be like, Matt Damon in that movie and get a scholarship or something. But I just had to pay my own way.